Chapter 196. After Katsura left, she replied to Wuming the next day. Grandpa said that His Majesty can come to Grandpa at any time, but Grandpa will not provide any help. Whether he can come or not depends on Wuming's own ability. Then, Katsura stayed in Wuming's villa. Because Wanraguyuli's parents were basically not at home due to professional reasons, the burden of taking care of his sister was handed over to Wanraguyuli. In addition to going to school, Wanraguyuli basically stayed in the shrine or took care of his sister. Now, because of the arrival of Wuming, Wanraguyuli did not go to the shrine much except for the necessary school. Moreover, his place of residence had changed from his home to Wuming's villa. Because his home was some distance away from Wuming's residence, Wanraguyuli became quite busy. During this period, Alice, who was far away in Europe, said that she would come to Japan with the purpose of helping Wuming solve the matter of the last king. Because the prophecy of the last king that Alice saw with spirit vision was something far in the future, Wuming was not very anxious to solve this matter. Therefore, Wuming contacted Sebastian and asked him to meet Alice and escort her to Japan. After a few days of leisure, Wuming sat in the courtyard and meditated. In the Qingqiu courtyard, Hui Na knelt beside him. Liliana was making lunch in the kitchen. After Erica returned, she walked to the side and waited quietly. Wuming exhaled a long breath, ended his meditation, and then looked at Erica. "What's wrong, Erica?" In the past few days, except for Wanraguyuli who needed to go to school, Erica, Liliana, and Katsura were unusually idle. Katsura practiced the witch training every day, and then accompanied Wuming, saying that it was convenient for His Majesty to order around. As for Erica and Lilia, apart from their daily cultivation, they would sometimes accompany Wuming, but most of the time, it was Erica who took the reluctant Lilia out shopping. Speaking of which, because Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard had said that the king only needed to eat the food she prepared, she had angered Liliana, who was Liliana's cook. After the two of them argued with each other and Liliana's persuasion, the two of them decided that each of them would take care of Liliana's and everyone's meals on different days. Today was the day Liliana was preparing food. That was why Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard was by Wuming's side. Early in the morning, someone from the History Editing Committee seemed to have something to tell Wuming and wanted to invite Wuming over. "It's just a small matter. How could we trouble our king to personally deal with it?" Therefore, Erica refused the Committee of History by saying, "I can go," and left the house early in the morning. However, in Wuming's opinion, Erica was just bored here and wanted to have some fun. Something happened. The people from the History Editing Committee said that Bishop Luo Hao is coming to Japan. Erica looked serious. "Luo Hao is coming?" Wuming remembered his conversation with Luo Hao when he was in China. It seemed that Luo Hao did say that she would return to Japan soon. "That's quite believable. It seems that Japan is going to suffer," Erica laughed gloatingly. However, Erica was right. As a godslayer, every king had the ability to cause trouble. One godslayer was already bad enough. If two godslayers came to the same area, it would not be a good outcome. In the records, as long as 2 to more than 10 godslayers gathered in each region, that region would not have a good time. As for Wuming, the exception was to become a godslayer. The several battles that Wuming fought after becoming a godslayer were either carried out in his own barrier or paid attention to not hurt ordinary people during the battle. After the battle, he would also use the props in Yggdrasil to repair the damaged areas. It could be said that he was the most unlike a godslayer. "By the way, why don't you call her Tsuelian anymore?" Erica teased. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard also turned her head slightly and looked at Wuming. "Ahem, I was forced by Luo Hao to call her that. At that time, I just didn't change my way of calling her." Wuming coughed and changed the topic. "By the way, do you know why Luo Hao is here?" Before Erica could speak, Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard answered first. "Hui Na knows this. That lord must be here for Monarch Ape. That's what Kaneko said too, Erica added. Monarch Ape? Wuming muttered this name. It didn't sound like a human or a magician. It sounded more like a monkey-type god of disobedience. I've never heard of a monkey-type god with the name Monarch Ape. Wuming thought about his memory and asked Kalas to search for information about Monarch Ape. Wuming, can you guess the true identity of Monarch Ape? Erica smiled slyly. Seeing that Wuming was thinking, Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard gave him a clue. Actually, that's a god from another country that Grandpa tricked. Hearing Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard say this, Wuming touched his chin. Hearing this hint and thinking about Luo Hao's behavior of questioning about coming to Japan, Wuming could almost guess who this Monarch Ape was. The great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Erica said the name of this god of disobedience. Sure enough, from the 3 hints of other gods, Luo Hao's country, and the monkey, he could only think of the all-powerful great sage, heaven's equal. Actually, Monarch Ape is still sealed. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard said something surprising. Sealed? Where? Wuming asked. In the West Heaven Palace on Mount Riguang. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard smiled. Mount Riguang was located in the Kanto region. As a tourist attraction with many shrines and temples, it attracted many foreign and domestic tourists every year. Especially in autumn, the red maple leaves on Mount Riguang were the main reason for most tourists to come. According to Kaneji Winterhorse, 100 years ago, Hierarch Luo Hao came to Japan with the excuse that it's a shame that he was raised by the Japanese despite being a hero of our country. He raised the West Heaven Palace together with the ground. But because Monarch Ape escaped to secluded world, it was left unsettled, Erica added. So, Luo Hao's purpose is to try to kill the great sage, heaven's equal again. In that case, doesn't he have to first liberate the disobedient Sun Wukong? Wuming already understood why the history editing committee came to him. Not to mention the conflict between the 2 kings, just the fact that Hierarch Luo Hao liberated Monarch Ape and made him appear as the disobedient Sun Wukong was already a disaster. If it's Luo Hao, it's understandable. Chapter 197. After all, Luo Hao comes from a country with a strong sense of nationality. Moreover, as a woman born during the Qing dynasty, Luo Hao still had a strong sense of feudalism even after 200 years had passed. Those not of my race will definitely have different intentions. Those who offend my Huaxiao will be punished no matter how far away they are. These words didn't come from the country where Luo Hao came from. The great sage, heaven's equal, the insufferably arrogant monkey king Sun Wukong, was actually being raised by a former vassal country of Japan. It would be strange if she wasn't angry. Honestly, I can only say that as expected of the god of disobedience, a bunch of troublesome existences. Wuming shrugged helplessly. Meanwhile, Erica glanced at Wuming as if to say, "You're the one who's the most troublesome existence here, and you still have the nerve to talk about others." Of course, Wuming chose to ignore all of this. "In that case, I'll have to go see your grandfather, Hui Na." At night, Wuming, Erica, Liliana, Wanli Yuli, and Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard gathered at a shrine. At this moment, Wuming was squatting on the ground and drawing something. Soon, the last stroke was completed. "All right, in that case, the tunnel to the soul world is completed." Wuming waved his hand. This tunnel was something that Wanli Yoli and Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard had told Wuming about. Because of Kala's existence, Wuming was able to easily complete the extremely difficult spell. "Lord Wuming, are you really going to enter the soul world?" Wanli Yuli looked at Wuming worriedly. "That's right, Lord Wuming. I still feel that this method is inappropriate." Liliana also frowned. Wuming naturally knew what the two of them were worried about. The soul world, also known as the astral world, was the boundary between life and death, the crack between the world. The air in the soul world was unable to allow anyone to survive. Ordinary people or even magicians, if they stayed in the soul world in a state where they had no magic power, it wouldn't take long for them to enter a poisoned state. It would only take a few minutes for them to completely die. Although it was called the boundary between life and death, if one died in this world, their body and soul would also disappear. This was enough to show just how terrifying the soul world was. However, this wasn't the most terrifying part. That was because as long as one didn't have a physical body or had magic power cover their entire body, they would still be able to survive in soul world. The most terrifying part was the god of disobedience. That's right. Although the gods of disobedience all appeared in the real world, there were also gods of disobedience in the soul world. Ever since the ancient times, powerful creatures had been bound by human myths and legends. In the soul world, there were multiple gods, including Pandora, whom Wu Ming had met not long ago. A conservative estimate was that there were more than 20 gods in the soul world. Apart from the king of disobedience, there were also all sorts of powerful creatures, such as human magicians who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation, god ancestors who had fallen from the goddess of the earth, and so on. It was just that there were far fewer of them in soul world. These gods were basically all tired of wreaking havoc on the earth, so they all entered the soul world, which was called seclusion. However, there were also exceptions, and Pandora was one of them. The witch Pandora, she was the god of disobedience who had existed in the soul world since ancient times. Killing the god of disobedience and obtaining its power was a great curse set by Pandora. As the witch who left behind the only hope for mankind, Pandora could already be said to be the mother of the god slayers. That was also why when Wu Ming first met Pandora, Pandora called herself Mother. After that, perhaps because of Wu Ming's identity as the god of disobedience, Pandora took a step back and chose to be the elder sister. Wu Ming still had some doubts about becoming a god slayer with the identity of the god of disobedience. Wu Ming always felt that Pandora knew that he wasn't from this world. Wu Ming didn't believe that Pandora just chose an ordinary god of disobedience to become a god slayer. It may also be because of this, under Pandora's design, Wu Ming could become a god slayer in this world with a disobedient body. Now that I thought about it, Wu Ming, the god of disobedience, entering the soul world seemed quite reasonable. Don't worry, I am the combination of snake and steel. Those gods of disobedience who live in seclusion in the soul world are just timid in my opinion. In the face of timid people, even if there are many gods, I won't do anything. Believe in Wu Ming, believe in the king of disobedience. Erica looked at Wu Ming with confidence. Hui Na also believes that the king will be fine. At this moment, Hui Na exuded a very strong Yamato Nadeshiko smile. It was indeed worthy of being called a top-notch Yamato Nadeko by Kaneko Winterhorse. This momentum was really not for show. Seeing Wu Ming, Erica, and Hui Na said so, Liliana and Yuri didn't say anything, but their worries couldn't be completely eliminated. Then, I'll take my leave first, Wu Ming said with a smile. Then, the magic formation instantly lit up, making the four people unable to open their eyes. After the light disappeared, the four people looked at Wu Ming. There was only an empty magic formation left in the place, and there was magic power exuding around it, indicating that Wu Ming was here just now. The four people didn't leave, but sat around the magic formation, waiting quietly. The environment in the soul world was actually similar to the main world: mountains, cities, beaches, and oceans, but these places were covered in gray. The only thing that didn't exist was that there were no living creatures. In addition to these ordinary landscapes, there were also various strange worlds in the soul world, such as abstract painting style, Cthulhu style, and other kinds of appearances that were difficult for ordinary people to accept. In addition to these natural existences, the powerful existences in the soul world, such as the god of disobedience, could also create and change the appearance of the surroundings to suit themselves. For example, when Wu Ming met Pandora, The space she was in was a completely white space with nothing else. This was the environment that Pandora had created for herself. Inside the soul world, a ray of light suddenly appeared. After the ray of light landed, it transformed into Wuming. Wuming's current environment was a city that looked similar to the main world. However, this city was covered in gray. So, this is the soul world? There's so much magic power here. Wuming exclaimed as he observed his surroundings and sensed the abundant magic power here. Master, I can sense knowledge. At this moment, Kala spoke up while standing on top of Wuming's head. Knowledge? Wuming asked. Yes, Master. You can try to think about some things. Wuming listened to Kalas and activated the god of disobedience. Wuming instantly opened his eyes wide as a large amount of knowledge poured into Wuming's mind. Wuming stopped thinking and shook his head. This was the side effect of a large amount of knowledge instantly entering his mind. I never expected that the soul world would have such an effect as well. While Wuming was thinking about the god of disobedience, almost all the information about the god of disobedience started flowing into Wuming's mind. However, because there was too much information, Wuming instantly disconnected the information. It could be said that the soul world was a gigantic global information library. If one wanted to find any information, they could meditate in the soul world, and the soul world would instantly stuff all the information into their mind. That's right, the soul world would stuff all the information that one wanted into one's mind. Wuming thought of a word. Omniscient and omnipotent. As long as one thought about something in this world, they would definitely obtain the answer. What else could this be if not omniscient and omnipotent? Kalas, I'll have to trouble you this time. Chapter 198. Yes, Master. After Kalas finished speaking, she began to glow. Wuming knew that Kalas was constantly recording things related to this world. As long as Kalas thought of a series of questions, she could get the answer. The answers were stored by Kalas for convenient reference in the future. Knowledge was actually wisdom, which was an extremely precious resource. Odin sacrificed an eye to obtain supreme wisdom, which was the Lune rune. Zeus obtained supreme wisdom after swallowing the goddess of wisdom, Métis. This was enough to show the importance of wisdom and knowledge. After Kalas entered her working state, Wuming began to wander around, looking at the surrounding scenery. No wonder there are gods living in seclusion here. Although this place is a bit strange, it is still a good place to live in seclusion. With that, Wuming stopped, because a small wooden house appeared in front of him. Interesting. Wuming's mouth curled up slightly, then he walked towards the small wooden house. Opening the door of the small wooden house, he saw darkness. Although he couldn't see what was inside, Wuming still walked in. After entering, what entered Wuming's eyes was a gloomy space. In the middle of the space there were 3 people sitting. On the left was an old monk wearing an ancient monk robe. On the right was a young girl with glass eyes wearing a gorgeous princess robe. The one in the middle was a middle-aged man with messy black hair. He was dressed in a rather sloppy ancient warrior's attire. Obviously, the black-haired middle-aged man in the middle was the leader of the old monk and the glass-eyed princess. The 3 of them sat in a triangular formation. There was a small hanging furnace in the middle with sake in it. The middle-aged man held a wine vessel in his hand, and the old monk and the glass-eyed princess didn't have wine cups or anything like that beside them. Obviously, this was prepared for the middle-aged man. Wuming walked in front of the middle-aged man, to the right of the monk and the left of the glass-eyed princess, and sat down. Welcome, King of Disobedience. The glass-eyed princess bowed slightly and spoke first. Wuming nodded to show his respect. The old monk didn't say anything and Wuming didn't care about him either. Ha 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 ha, do you want a bite, Otherworlder? After the glass-eyed princess finished speaking, the big man in the middle raised his cup and shook it at Wuming. Wuming narrowed his eyes. It seemed that Pandora was not the only one who knew that he came from another world. Forget about drinking. I don't really like drinking with people I'm not familiar with. Speaking of which, you're the grandfather that Hui Na mentioned, right? Wu Ming asked directly. That's right, that's right. I'm Hui Na's grandfather. What do you think? My granddaughter isn't bad, right? The burly man said with an evil look on his face as he drank another mouthful of wine. Hui Na is a good child. It's a shame for her to stay under you. Wu Ming ignored the man's evil look and directly spoke sarcastically. Anyway, I've already given her to you. Just treat her as your witch. The burly man didn't care about Wu Ming's sarcasm, smiled casually, and then drank another mouthful of wine. Let's not talk too much. I don't care who the two people beside you are. I just want to know if the last king was hidden by you, the male life of Susanoo. Wu Ming not only directly stated his purpose, but also the real name of the burly man. Yes, the burly man in front of Wu Ming is a famous Japanese god, the male life of Susanoo. Susanoo was one of the 3 sons of Izanagi and Izanami, the 2 ancient gods of Japan. The other 2 are the Japanese sun goddesses, Amaterasu Amikami and Tsukuyomi. In Japan's Kojiki, Susanoo is called the male life of Susanoo. He also has many names such as Tame Horsehead, Tame King, Susanoo, and so on. All in all, Susanoo is a very important god in the pantheon, comparable to Athena of Greece. The reason why Wu Ming knew of the burly man's name was because of the long item wrapped in cloth from Clear Autumn Courtyard's Hui Na Heavenly Cloud Sword. Hui Na claimed that this was the sky cluster cloud that her grandfather bestowed upon her, but Wu Ming discovered that this sky cluster cloud was a subsidiary god. The only god who could make the heavenly cloud sword be affiliated to was Susanoo. According to the legend, Susanoo wielded the sword of Tatsuka and killed the Yamata no Orochi. He found a treasure sword from the tail of the Yamata no Orochi, which was the heavenly cloud sword. In other words, the burly man was steel. However, the burly man was not displeased when his real name was revealed. Instead, he laughed out loud. As I said, as long as he comes in contact with Hui Na, he will know your name. The old monk sitting on the left said with some displeasure. So what? It doesn't matter to me whether he knows or not. It's really exciting. I have many names. Let's call me Susanoo for the time being. What about you, alien? Susanoo grinned and then asked Wu Ming. I also have many names, but my favorite is Wu Ming. Just call me Wu Ming. As soon as he said that, the old monk and Princess Glass Eyes instantly understood Wu Ming's intention. Since he was a god, he must have a weakness. Just like the followers of the Holy Grail War, hiding their real name was to avoid weaknesses. The name Wu Ming didn't sound like a god. In this way, they couldn't find his weakness through his name. Do you think we can't know your real name if you don't tell us? Your battle with another god slayer has already exposed your real name, Villosilenst. The old monk was quite unconvinced. After the old monk said that, Princess Glass Eyes realized that something was going to happen. When she was about to speak, Wu Ming spoke. If my perception is correct, you are a human. Wu Ming's eyes became sharp and looked directly at the old monk. In Wu Ming's perception, the old monk was not a god, but a magician who cultivated to the extreme. And Princess Glass Eyes had a similar aura to Guinevere, whom Wu Ming had seen before. There was no doubt that Princess Glass Eyes was a god. Everyone here is a great existence. You are just a human, how dare you be presumptuous in front of me? Boom. Wu Ming's magical power rushed out of his body. Wu Ming's scarlet eyes stared at the old monk as if he was looking at a dead man. The old monk couldn't move as if he was in a dragon's nest, being stared at by tens of thousands of dragons. That was the pressure caused by Wu Ming releasing his dragon's power. The old monk's face instantly turned pale. Princess Glass Eyes and Susanoo, who were not targeted, also felt a little pressure. Please be merciful, Wu Ming-sama. Princess Glass Eyes said awkwardly. Wu Ming looked at her, and Princess Glass Eyes instantly broke out in cold sweat. Then, Wu-Ming looked at Susanoo, who had already stopped smiling. Then, Wu-Ming put away his dragon's power. In an instant, the old monk, who was targeted, breathed a sigh of relief. How about it? Do you want to continue to test me, Susanoo-sama? Chapter 199. Wu-Ming's words were not wrong at all. From the beginning, when Wu-Ming came in, the old monk did not speak. It was not until Wu-Ming said Susanoo's real name that the old monk opened his mouth. Every time the old monk spoke, he was targeting Wu-Ming, and Wu-Ming could naturally see it. And although the three of them were sitting in a situation where Susanoo was the leader, it did not mean that he was the leader. It could be seen from Princess Glass Eye's attempt to stop the old monk's speech, but she was interrupted by Wu-Ming. The reason why he was interrupted was because Wu-Ming also wanted to show Susanoo who was in charge. From the way Wu-Ming released draconic force to suppress the old monk, it could be seen that Susanoo's smile had disappeared. As the root dragon, after absorbing the root power of the ex-moon world, Wu-Ming's draconic force had reached an unprecedented height. Especially just now, if Wu-Ming suddenly released draconic force at a very close distance and the other party was not prepared, he would be completely suppressed. Even Susanoo, who was not the target, felt the pressure, so he had to take it seriously. As for the magic power, Wu-Ming deliberately released it to set off the atmosphere. You only need to tell me about the last king and monarch ape. I don't want to know anything else, including their identities. When Wu-Ming said this, Susanoo began to laugh. Ha 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 ha. He kept slapping his thigh, and the magic power of Susanoo also leaked out. After laughing, Susanoo instantly looked at Wu-Ming. As expected of someone from another world, you're really not weak. Even I, the graduated god of disobedience, want to play with you. Susanoo's eyes flashed with a dangerous light. In response, Wu-Ming just said a few words. Is that so? Boom! The small wooden house instantly exploded, and three figures escaped somewhat awkwardly. God of disobedience, please calm down. Princess Glass Eyes said a little anxiously. The old monk next to her was a little angry. He's too arrogant, why don't we take him down together? The old monk looked at Susanoo and Princess Glass Eyes. Take me down? I even wonder if you're too old for your head. Wu-Ming's voice came from the small wooden house that had turned into a pile of ruins. Although you were frozen by my draconic force was a sneak attack. Don't overestimate yourself. Yes, although Wu-Ming had successfully frozen the old monk with his draconic force, it did not mean that the old monk was a powerless guy. A magician who could work with the god of disobedience and the god ancestor had a certain degree of strength. But boom! The ruins exploded and a meteor flashed through the ruins, accompanied by the sound of chains. It charged towards the old monk. Not good! Susanoo shouted and quickly retreated. Princess Glass Eyes followed, and the old monk stayed where he was. Don't underestimate me, God Slayer! The old monk roared and put his palms together to form a Buddhist seal. The Buddhist seals formed a wall filled with Buddhist aura. Boundless demonic power gushed out in all directions. One look and one could tell that this was not a weak move. However, the silver-white meteor easily broke through the Buddhist wall, as easily as a stone falling into the water. What? The old monk couldn't believe it. He was quite confident in his curse technique. That wall just now, even Susanoo would have a hard time attacking it. He didn't expect Wu-Ming to break through it so easily. The chains wrapped around the silver meteor hit the old monk fiercely. The old monk was knocked away like a deflated ball and fell heavily to the ground. The old monk spat out blood. Obviously, as a human, even if his means were superb, his physical fitness was still inferior to Wu-Ming. The silver meteor stopped, revealing Wu-Ming's figure holding the rune of 10,000 methods. He just relied on the rune of 10,000 methods to easily break through the old monk's Buddhist wall. After all, as long as it was made of magical power, rune of 10,000 methods could return it to its original state, that is, nothing. In fact, if you used countless rule breakers to pierce a servant, you would be able to directly return to the martyr's palace. This was because a servant was an amalgamation of magic power. Of course, that was only if the servant stood there and did nothing to stop you from stabbing it. The rule breaker talisman in his hand, which had exhausted all of its power, shattered. Then Wuming looked at Susanoo, who dodged the chains just now, and Princess Glass Eyes, who went to the old monk's side to heal him. At the same time, Princess Glass Eyes spoke. "Please calm down, Lord of Disobedience." Princess Glass Eyes' voice sounded quite helpless. Because she respected Wuming from the beginning, Wuming didn't want to trouble her, so Wuming didn't care about Princess Glass Eyes who healed the old monk. As for the old monk, if it weren't for Princess Glass Eyes, he would have died a long time ago. One must know that the current Enkidu was not a chain that could only bind the gods in myth. Instead, it had evolved into a powerful chain that could both attack and defend. Moreover, its binding effect had been enhanced ahead of time. "That's Heaven's Lock, right?" Susanoo asked. Although he didn't know what the lightning-shaped dagger in Wuming's hand was, it didn't mean that he didn't know the golden chain. Susanoo, who had a special intelligence channel, naturally knew that Wuming had a golden chain in his hand, and it was a chain that could attack gods. After careful study, Susanoo has determined that it was the Enkidu of the Sumer gods in Mesopotamia. That was why he dodged Wuming's attack just now. If he was tied by that chain, he would be at the mercy of Wuming. As expected of the Susanoo who used tricks to kill Orochi. "It seems that you can only play tricks." Wuming sneered, then turned around. Susanoo's face was gloomy. "I will kill the great sage, Heaven's equal, and I will deal with the last king." After saying that, Wuming disappeared. Shrine. After Wuming entered Soul World, Erika, Liliana, Yuri, and Hina stayed around the magic formation. No one complained, they just waited quietly. At this time, the magic formation lit up again. All four of them were attracted to it. Wuming's figure appeared in the center of the magic formation. "How is it solved?" Erika asked. Chapter 200. Half and Half. As soon as Razan said that, Erika and the others were quite confused. There were two reasons why Wuming went to Soul World to see Hui Na's grandfather. The first was about Luo Hao's crusade against the Great Sage. The second was about the last king. Although Silent Wonder didn't get anything out of Susanoo's mouth, because of his relationship with Yushur, the moment he asked the question, Silent Wonder was informed by Yushur about the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal and the Last King. However, because Yushur directly transmitted the knowledge to Wuming's mind instead of answering the question, Yushur only passed on the history of the last king and the Great Sage. After the last king killed the last godslayer of the previous generation, he fell into a deep sleep in the place where he killed the last godslayer of the previous generation, which was Japan. Because it was a piece of history, Wuming didn't know who the last king was. He only saw the scene of him holding the sword of salvation and releasing the thunder of salvation. His figure was blocked by the lightning, so Wuming didn't see his figure clearly. However, Wuming always felt that there was a special power protecting him, so Wuming couldn't see his identity. The Great Sage, Heaven's Equal, was much easier to deal with. The Great Sage, Heaven's Equal, was sealed by the old monk, Susanoo, Princess Glassy Eyes, and several other gods who lived in seclusion. They used a spell to target the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. When the dragon snake appeared, the spell that trapped the Great Sage would weaken, and the Great Sage would be released. After the dragon snake was killed, the Great Sage would be forced back to the Western Heavenly Palace by the spell. Wuming guessed that the reason for this was to prevent the dragon snake from attracting the last king of the strongest steel. As everyone knew, steel and serpent were mortal enemies. Where there was serpent, there would be steel. Therefore, in order to prevent the last king from appearing, The great sage needed to eliminate the dragon and serpent. The reason why Wu-ming only said half of it was because there was too little information about the last king, so Wu-ming couldn't analyze the last king's weakness. Because of the lack of information, Wu-ming's warrior avatar has been unable to be activated. But Wu-ming walked to the steps of the shrine. "I will solve the problem of the great sage and the last king," Wu-ming said arrogantly. Wu-ming's words were full of confidence, which made several people who were a little uneasy at first feel relieved. "Let's go back to sleep." After that, Wu-ming took the lead. Erica and the others looked at each other. Then, they smiled and followed soundless out of the shrine. The next day, airport. Wu-ming came here with Erica, Liliana, and Hui Na, waiting for someone's arrival. Wu-ming couldn't help but remember the content of Alice's call to him yesterday. Last night, Wu-ming returned to his room, and as soon as he lay down, the mobile phone specially prepared for Wu-ming rang. Because of Wu-ming's identity, the contacts on his mobile phone were basically the phone numbers of some high-level Magic Association members. This was to facilitate Wu-ming's actions in each area, although Wu-ming didn't need it. In addition to those, there were also the phone numbers of Erica, Liliana, Kodoan, Hui Na, Alice, Salvatore, and a few others. Of course, Wu-ming did not delete Salvatore's phone number, and he specifically marked "hang up." He picked up the phone and looked at the words "Princess Alice" written on it. By the way, this mobile phone was given to Wu-ming by Alice. She called it, "I'm so busy that I can't contact you, so I specially prepared a mobile phone for you." Wu-ming picked up the phone and spoke immediately. "How can our princess have time to call me?" Wu-ming said calmly. "Master Wu-ming, you are really good at joking. Just call me Alice." Although the attitude was very respectful, Wu-ming still heard a trace of slyness from her words. "Well, take it as a return gift for the last time in your room," Wu-ming said with a sly smile. Although Alice looked like a well-behaved girl, Wu-ming knew that she had the potential to be a little witch in her bones. He could see it just by the fact that she had escaped from his house. "Really, Master Wu-ming, I have something serious to talk to you about now." Although this sentence sounded very calm, Alice, who was on the other end of the phone, had already blushed. Fortunately, there was no one else around her. It was really a blessing to see Princess Alice of Europe blushing. "You are coming to Japan tomorrow, right?" Wu-ming did not tease Alice anymore and went straight to the topic. "Oh? How did Master Wu-ming know? Did Mr. Sebastian say it?" Alice's voice was full of surprise. In this regard, Wu-ming just smiled. When Wu-ming came to Japan, he specifically contacted Sebastian through contact magic and asked him to bring Alice to Japan to study the last king together. The reason why Alice had not come yet after a few days was that Alice still had to deal with some things in Europe. Alice had originally escaped from her own house using the ghost body, which meant that Alice owed some work. Although Alice was the current special advisor of the Sage Parliament and didn't have many things to do, it still couldn't stop the accumulation of work. In fact, the reason why Alice sneaked to Wu-ming's place in Italy at that time was because the birth of the seventh king added a lot of tasks, which needed the permission of Alice, the former speaker and now special advisor, to carry out. Because of Alice's stubbornness, the accumulated missions had increased by the time she returned. The most important thing was Ericsson's obstruction. Although her master's body was fine, Ericsson was still a little worried about letting Alice cross half the world and go to Japan. As long as she was not facing the God Slayer, Ericsson could be said to be a perfect career woman. Even facing Sebastian, at most, she would just give in a little. Just as Seabass was about to argue with her, Alice stopped him. After that, Alice secretly left her house and boarded the plane. "That's right, Master Wu-ming. I have already boarded the plane with Mr. Sebastian. I think we will arrive tomorrow morning. Remember to come and pick me up." Then, after Wu-ming said, "Oh," Wu-ming hung up the phone and went to sleep. "Really, you are not a child anymore. Do you still need someone to pick you up?" In the room provided by the History Editing Committee, Wu-ming said casually. Although he said that, Wu-ming still brought his old and new servants to pick him up. Wu-ming, Her Highness Alice has arrived. Chapter 201. Erica withdrew her gaze from the plane that had just landed outside the window. Wu-ming understood and stood up. Let's go and greet Her Royal Highness. Alice and Sebastian got off the plane and instantly saw Wu-ming and others who had been waiting for a long time. Thank you for your hard work, Sebastian. Wu-ming nodded to Sebastian. You are too kind, Master Wu-ming. Sebastian put his right hand on his heart and bowed slightly. Alice too, she is tired from the journey. You're talking as if I'm just an accessory. Is this how you treat a girl who was once alone in a room, Lord Wu-ming? Alice covered her face with her hands and sobbed softly, as if she was an abandoned girl. This caused Liliana and the others to be slightly surprised. However, Erica, who was an old friend of Alice's, wasn't surprised at all. Well, don't do that, I have a new discovery about the last king. Wu-ming shook his head helplessly. Seeing this, Alice stopped crying and put on a serious expression. Let's talk about it at my place. Later, Wu-ming, others, and Alice took the vehicle provided by the Historical Redaction Committee and came to the villa where Wu-ming temporarily lived. In the conference room of the villa, Sebastian stood behind Wu-ming, Alice sat opposite Wu-ming, listening to Wu-ming's explanation, while Erica and others listened quietly. So that's how it is, Master Wu-ming not only met Master Guinevere, but also entered the soul world. After listening to Wu-ming's speculation about the last king, Alice couldn't help but sigh. Well, that's how it is. Although that Susanuki-zune really pissed me off. Wu-ming said somewhat uninterestedly. Alice said after she organized her thoughts. What does Lord Wu-ming think of the legend of King Arthur? When Alice asked this question, Erica and the others were all puzzled. After all, there was a high probability that Wu-ming was the knight who was incarnated from the legendary dragon, Vilo Saranthod. It was like asking a chef what a spoon looks like. However, Wu-ming's answer was unexpected. If you're referring to a deeper understanding, I don't know much about the legend of King Arthur. After all, there were many gods in this world. A god might be the god of craftsmen in one divine system in Europe, and the god of fire in another divine system in Asia. But no matter what, the multiple names of the gods were related to each other. Therefore, even if Wu-ming was indeed the Vilo Theransword, he dared not claim that he had a clear understanding of the legend of King Arthur. Actually, the legend of King Arthur is fictional. Fictional? Everyone, including Erica, was shocked. Wu-ming was a little puzzled. Although his identity was imposed by this world, it couldn't be said to be fictional. Then, as if thinking of something, Wu-ming looked at Alice. Do you mean that the legend of King Arthur is based on me? Alice smiled and nodded. As expected of Lord Wu-ming. That's right, that's the truth. Then, looking at everyone's dumbfounded expression, Alice continued. Lord Wu-ming has met Guinevere. I believe your memory and hers should have been recovered. However, from what you said just now, it seems that your memory is not fully recovered. Wu-ming just nodded at the mention of recovering his memory. Because there had been cases of gods of disobedience who had lost their memory, the sage council seemed to treat Wu-ming, who didn't look like a god of disobedience, as a god of disobedience who had lost his ancient memory. In fact, it wasn't wrong. When Wu-ming came to this world, he did know that he was the god of disobedience, but he didn't know what his divine name was. It wasn't until the battle with Warban that he learned that he was the Vilo Theransword. However, now that he thought about it, it seemed that the Uruk Yunryong and Theransword were also Wu-ming's divine identity. After all, this was a world where the gods had multiple divine names. Then again, being treated as someone who had lost his ancient memory also saved Wu-ming the trouble of explaining. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Lord Guinevere, the divine ancestor, actually existed a long time ago. On the way to find the last king, Lord Guinevere met Lord Vilo. Everyone looked at Wu-ming. Later, because she fell in love with Lord Villo, but because she still shouldered the burden of finding the last king, Lord Guinevere had to fabricate the legend of King Arthur. Gods have multiple identities, and if you have enough means, you can pull them out of the myth. According to legend, the last king is the strongest steel, who will appear at the end of the world, that is, when there are too many godslayers, the last king will appear. Combined with the story of King Arthur, everyone understood at once. In other words, Guinevere's original purpose was to create a myth similar to the last king, so as to summon the last king? Erica said with some disbelief. That's right. Alice nodded. Then what does this have to do with woming, Sama? Liliana asked. Of course, it has something to do with it. Alice looked at woming again. Because she fell in love with Lord Villo, Guinevere unconsciously put Lord Villo into the legend of King Arthur when she created the myth. In the end, the myth of King Arthur has been widely recognized by the world, and Guinevere, who realized the problem, added another identity to the King Arthur myth. That is King Arthur's strongest knight, Villo there answered. Wanli Gu Yuli said. Yes, but it still doesn't change that King Arthur was created based on Lord Woming, but because Lord Guinevere was killed before the summoning ritual began, this method was not used. When Lord Guinevere was reincarnated, she had already discovered that the legend of King Arthur had been modified by humans in later generations, and it was no longer the legend of the last king, so Lord Guinevere gave up this method. However, this method created Lord Woming, right? Qingqiu Courtyard's Hui Na smiled slightly. That's right. Alice continued, and everyone looked at Woming. The current legend of King Arthur clearly shows how similar King Arthur and his strongest knight are. King Arthur is said to be the incarnation of the Red Dragon, and the Villo is the legendary knight transformed from the dragon. King Arthur has an unparalleled sacred sword of stars, and the Villo also has a sacred sword of meteor. The Knights of the Round Table worship and admire King Arthur and the Villo the most. When King Arthur went out to war, the Villo was in power in the city, and when the Villo was out to war, King Arthur was in power in the city. The Villo disappeared after the unification of Britain, and that was when King Arthur began to decline. Alice listed out a series of similarities between King Arthur and the Villo. These conditions undoubtedly show that Lord Woming, who is also Lord Villo, is King Arthur. The final sentence left everyone speechless for a long time. Well, Woming felt like his head was going to explode. Chapter 202. Woming was dumbfounded as he listened to Alice's explanation. At this moment, Woming only wanted to use one sentence to explain his current feelings. Sigh, as the person involved, I didn't even know. Then, Woming said that he wanted to think about what to do next and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Everyone looked at Sebastian in confusion. Sebastian bowed slightly and said politely, Ladies, don't worry. Lord Woming's ability to accept things is very strong. He just needs time. Probably. In the end, Sebastian said, probably with a guilty conscience. After all, this story was too strange. Even Sebastian could not accept it. After all, his worldview was messed up. On the other side, Woming sat on an empty beach and looked at the sea tiredly. What's wrong, my compatriot? Are you unable to accept what that witch said? A magnetic lowly voice came from behind Woming. Woming did not turn around and said calmly. When Alice got off the plane, Woming sensed Athena's presence. Then, Woming shook his head. That's not the case. Thinking about it, what Alice said seems to be true. The holy sword, the dragon, the knight, and his life experiences. The two of them complemented each other and were inseparable. In this world where there were many identities, there was nothing wrong with it. Then, why are you still so negative? This is not an expression that a warrior should have, my compatriot. Athena sat beside Woming and said in detail. Woming smiled and shook his head. That's true. Let's deal with the great sage, heaven's equal first. Wu-ming stood up as he spoke. By the way, where have you been all this time? After all, this was the culprit that caused the battle between Wu-ming and Perseus. Of course, Wu-ming wanted to know what she did after achieving her goal. I have been chasing after the god ancestor. Athena looked at Wu-ming with her snake-like eyes. Guinevere? Why? You shouldn't be in contact with her. Athena stood up and said, although I have nothing to do with the god ancestor, I don't want to resurrect the strongest steel. After all, steel is my mortal enemy. Athena's words were full of disgust. Is that so? I'm sorry, I will resurrect the strongest steel because I want to defeat him. Wu-ming's red eyes met Athena's snake-like eyes. In that case, you are my enemy. Athena's tone was cold. The two of them looked at each other without saying a word. The atmosphere turned cold. By the way, are you still chasing after the snake? Wu-ming suddenly asked. Athena was surprised for a moment. Then, she looked at Wu-ming with her charming and tender face and her unusually firm eyes. Of course, my goal is only the snake. Then, here you go. As he spoke, Wu-ming tossed a stone to Athena. My compatriot, what are you planning? Athena held Gorgon's stone with both hands and looked at Wu-ming with some doubts. Aren't you the goddess of wisdom? Think about it carefully. Wu-ming casually bowed. Oh, are you trying to test my wisdom? Darkness appeared in Athena's hand as she put away the Gorgon stone. You want to fight with me, don't you, my compatriot? Athena glared at Wu-ming, her eyes filled with fighting spirit. As the goddess of wisdom, Athena was also the goddess of war. She appeared as the god of disobedience, so she must be belligerent in her bones. Wu-ming also nodded. Yes, I want to fight with you, but I want to find and resurrect the last king, and you want to stop the resurrection of the last king. You said before that there will be a battle between you and me. So, let's use this battle to decide whether to release the last king or not. Wu-ming also looked at Athena with a smile full of fighting spirit. That sounds good. I agree. Athena began to release her magical power, and darkness began to fill the surroundings. But the time has to be after I defeat the great sage, heaven's equal. Wu-ming said just when Athena was surrounded by snakes. Athena looked at Wu-ming with some displeasure. Are you trying to escape, my compatriot? Facts proved that as the god of disobedience, even the goddess of wisdom would be disturbed by the nature of the god of disobedience. Don't misunderstand, I have no intention of escaping. First, it's because Luo Hao is about to come to Japan, and I have to defeat the great sage, heaven's equal, before he arrives. Second, you haven't recovered your Trinity body yet. I left a seal on the Gorgon stone just now. I believe that even you would need a few days to unlock it. Athena's frown eased. Thinking carefully, when she came into contact with the Gorgon stone just now, nothing happened. Logically speaking, when Athena came into contact with his divinity, the Gorgon stone, the two would definitely merge into one. Wu-ming deliberately added a super-advanced seal on the Gorgon stone to guard against Athena. Now, it was no longer necessary. Is this also part of your plan? You're both my compatriot and my nemesis. Athena revealed a smile despite her words. All right then, let my intelligence experience the sealing technique you've set up. Then, Athena turned around and disappeared into the darkness. Let me remind you, the god ancestor and his god's shadow have also come to the easternmost land. Athena's voice floated in the air and gradually faded away. Guinevere and Lancelot also came? I was wondering why Athena suddenly came to Japan. Wu-ming analyzed. Then, Wu-ming also turned around and disappeared like a whirlwind. On the other side, Guinevere held a round plate in his hand and stood on a high ground, looking into the distance. Lord Villo, Lancelot, who was in his shadow, shook his head helplessly. He said to himself, Sorry, Lord Villo, for the master that I can't forget, I will stand on his side. Huaxia Lu Mountain. A beautiful girl sat on a cushion and said to the boy kneeling in front of her, Inger, go to Japan first and inform the court that Luo Hao will visit in a few days. Yes, master, disciple will take his leave. Wait. The girl stopped the boy. Don't forget that he is also there. You must go and visit him first. Don't be rude. The girl reminded him. Master, don't worry, Inger will visit Lord Wuming first. In a secret cult's hideout in the United States, the enchanting silver-haired vampire was holding a little girl covered in wounds and naked with only a few bandages covering her body. Beside her were various black magicians who had been drained of blood and died a long time ago. I say, you are really good at running. You made me delay the mission that Lord gave me. The vampire smiled seductively, but the injured girl had already fainted. Now, the conditions to unlock the last king are almost there. I remember that Lord is in a place called Japan. Thinking, the silver-haired vampire dragged the unconscious girl and left. The easternmost land was destined to not be peaceful. Chapter 203. That night, Alice stayed in Wu Ming's villa. Of course, it was a harmonious night. Nothing happened that shouldn't have happened. Early the next morning, a handsome young man came to Wu Ming's residence. The disobedient king of heaven and earth will live as long as the heavens and earth, and will never be destroyed. Your might is limitless, and your wisdom and benevolence will shine throughout the world. Lu Yinghua did not dare to be negligent. After Luo Hao notified the others, he rushed to Japan overnight. Since it was late at night, he did not disturb Wu Ming. However, early the next morning, Lu Yinghua knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times to Wu Ming. Stop right there. Wu Ming sighed. He felt a headache coming on as he looked at Lu Yinghua, who was kneeling on one knee before him. Erica and the others around him were looking at him with shocked expressions. Didn't I tell you before? You don't have to say that when you see me. However, Lu Yinghua kept his head down and knelt on one knee. Master said that I can't do anything to you. If I don't do this, Master will kill me if she finds out. The others were speechless. As expected of the cult master. You have quite the personality, Erica said with a fake smile. As expected, the Godslayers are all brutal. Wanli Guyuli looked at Wu Ming with resentment. Wu Ming waved his hand. Don't compare me to the other Godslayers. That's right. The other Godslayers can't compare to our master's combat prowess. Liliana recalled how Wu Ming had repaired the destroyed grounds after the battle. As he listened to the girl's comments, Wu Ming vaguely noticed that Lu Yinghua's expression was slightly unnatural. It was as if he was holding something back. But, isn't the king's nature a god? Clear autumn courtyard's Hui Na's innocent face was filled with doubt. When she said that, the others, including Lu Yinghua, remembered that Wu Ming was a disobedient god. Because Wu Ming's behavior was too similar to that of an ordinary person, everyone subconsciously treated Wu Ming as a human. Then, realizing that Wu Ming was the god of disobedience, Lu Ying immediately fell to the ground on all fours. You are the supreme god of the heavens and the earth. You will live as long as the heavens and the earth. You will never be destroyed, and you will rule over all things. Your might is limitless, and you will benefit the world. Endless words came out of Lu Yinghua's mouth. Wu Ming didn't want to say anything more. You came looking for me because Luo Hao is about to come to Japan, right? Wu Ming instinctively interrupted Lu Yinghua's speech. Because he was interrupted, Lu Yinghua was stunned for a moment before replying. Yes, and my master has a very high opinion of you, senior. He asked me to pay you a visit with the same etiquette as my master. My master specifically asked me to send a message to you. The great sage, heaven's equal, is a god that my master is determined to kill. I hope that you will not interfere. However, this sentence was filled with power. As soon as he said this, Erica and the others were displeased. Just as Erica and the others were about to say something, Wu Ming raised his hand and gestured for them to keep quiet. Then, Wu Ming spoke. In that case, Please tell Luo how that I've decided to crusade against the great sage, heaven's equal. If possible, tell her not to come." Then, Wu Ming added, "Just take it that I've settled it for her." As soon as he said this, Lu Yinghua's eyes widened. As expected of the king of disobedience, my master's best friend, and a person who disobeys everything. I'll definitely pass on your message. I'll take my leave. After saying this, Lu Yinghua couldn't take it anymore. He turned into a shadow and left. "I don't know why, but I feel like he hates us," Erica said while stroking her chin. I have the same feeling. I can sense a faint hostility from Lu Yinghua," Liliana agreed. "Huh? Really? I didn't feel it." Wanli Yuli was at a loss. "That's because you don't have any combat experience, Yuli. Erica and Liliana are both Grand Knight. Being able to sense hostility is a necessary condition for a warrior," Wu Ming explained. "His Majesty is right, Yuli. Huina can also sense that hostility," Huina, who was the #1 witch Tachibana, also said. Wanli Yuli lowered his head slightly, as if blaming himself for not being able to sense it. Seeing this scene, Wu Ming spoke with a smile. "Don't underestimate yourself, Yuli. Your spirit vision is a trump card." Wanli Yuli raised his head and looked at everyone. Erica and Huina also nodded. Then Liliana said, "That's right. Although I also have spirit vision, compared to yours, mine seems a little useless." Despite this, Liliana wasn't discouraged. After all, she was a knight, not a witch. After all, a talent like spirit vision couldn't be improved through training. Therefore, Wanli Yuli's high-probability spirit vision could be said to be a very powerful ability. "Don't belittle yourself, Yuli," Erica teased. "Have confidence, Yuli." Qingqiu Courtyard's Huina raised her small hand and acted like she was cheering Wanli Yuli on. Is that so? Thank you very much, everyone. I'm fine." Wanli Yuli blushed a little. As if thinking of something, Wu Ming scratched his head in confusion. "Speaking of spirit vision, where did Alice go?" "If it's Alice, she probably overslept," the meticulous Liliana said. After all, Erica also had the habit of sleeping in. When Liliana went to wake Erica up, she also went to check on Alice. As a result, a rather drowsy voice of "I'll sleep for another 5 minutes" came from the room. Due to Lu Yinghua's arrival, Liliana had forgotten about this matter. "So, our Princess Highness hasn't woken up yet?" Wu Ming's eyes flashed with a playful glint. "Ah, Wu Ming, are you going to do something?" Erica asked slyly. WH. What do you want to do?" Liliana, Wanli Yuli, and Qingqiu Courtyard's Huina shouted with flushed faces. "Don't worry, I'm just going to wake Alice up." As he spoke, Wu Ming walked toward Alice's room. He left behind a group of stunned girls who had yet to react to the situation. Wait. Even if you're a king, you can't be rude to a lady. You're really shameless. Huina thinks it's not good to do this so early in the morning." Amidst the 3 girls' condemnation, Wu Ming walked to the stairs leading to the 2nd floor and took out a bunch of keys. "The spare keys that guy gave me have come in handy." Wu Ming recalled the "I know what to do" look on Gontai Dong Ma's face when he secretly gave him a bunch of keys. When the girls saw the keys in Wu Ming's hand, their expressions changed drastically. If that was the case, did it not mean that Wu Ming had spare keys to every room? The girls had no time to care about Alice's situation. They hastily returned to their rooms and began to reinforce their doors. However, they seemed to have forgotten that even if it was a high-level magic trick, Wu Ming's Godslayer body could ignore it. Chapter 204. Walking into Alice's room, Wu Ming saw a picture of a sleeping beauty. Although she only stayed for 1 night, the room was tidied up like a young girl's room. Together with the beautiful European princess, it formed an exceptionally beautiful picture. Smelling the fragrant scent of a young girl in the air, Wu Ming walked toward Alice, who was still asleep. Perhaps because Alice's body was not well all year round, it formed a habit of not getting up in the morning. Coupled with yesterday's journey, even with Wu Ming's protection, the mental fatigue could not be eliminated. After all, Wu Ming's long-term protection only turned Alice's body into the same as a normal person's. All sorts of reasons resulted in the scene before Wu Ming's eyes. Looking at Alice's sleeping face, Wu Ming couldn't think of pranking her anymore. Wu Ming stroked Alice's forehead as he spoke softly. "Alice, wake up, it's time to get up." "Erickson, I'll sleep for a while more. Anyway, I'm done with those things," Alice murmured. Wu Ming smiled helplessly, because Wu Ming's mischievous heart was ignited again. Then, Wu Ming leaned close to Alice's ear and blew. "If you don't get up, I'm going to give you another long-lasting protection kiss." Alice's consciousness was instantly awakened as she opened her amber-like eyes. Looking at the sleeping beauty waking up, Wu Ming watched with interest and didn't move at all. "Wu! Master Wu Ming, it's you." Alice grabbed her blanket, her face flushed, and nervously looked at Wu Ming's enlarged face. Wu Ming didn't speak, he just looked into Alice's eyes. Alice also looked into Wu Ming's eyes. Gradually, Wu Ming's body leaned forward slightly, and Alice, as if cooperating, raised her body slightly. The two of them kissed each other like lovers who had not seen each other for a long time. All that was left in the room was the sound of people clicking their tongues and panting. After an unknown period of time, the two of them separated. Alice's posture changed from lying on the bed to lying in Wu Ming's arms, and Wu Ming's posture changed from half lying on the edge of the bed to sitting on the bed. Alice gasped for air. Her cheeks were abnormally red, and her amber eyes were moist. Wu Ming, on the other hand, licked the corner of his lips in reminiscence as he looked at Alice with a smile. "Then, Lord Wu Ming, are you here to flirt with a lady?" Alice looked at Wu Ming with resentment. Wu Ming looked at Alice in his arms, who was different from her usual ladylike demeanor, and said happily, "Of course, it's to see you act like a little witch. You're here for the great sage, heaven's equal, right?" Alice said without thinking. After all, the matter of the great sage, heaven's equal, was more important. As expected of the princess, Alice, Wu Ming smiled. Wu Ming did not let go of Alice, and Alice did not struggle. She just lay in Wu Ming's arms. "I want you to help me see the power of the great sage, heaven's equal." That's right, Wu Ming meant to let Alice use her spirit vision to see the power of the great sage, heaven's equal. After all, in the legends, Sun Wu Ming wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, fought his way to the 33rd heaven, broke into the underworld, wrote off the book of life and death, learned the 72 transformations, and had endless transformations. He had the somersault cloud, which could be said to be unparalleled, and he also had the golden cudgel, a divine weapon, in his hand. After all, even if Wu Ming was very powerful, he would not ignore any enemy. This was what his master, Skaha, told Wu Ming. "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated." "Don't you have Witch Yuan with you who can use spirit vision? Why don't you just let her do it?" Alice said in a rather frivolous voice. Wu Ming smiled bitterly. "As for Yoli, she needs to see the target before she can use it. So, I'm here to ask you for a favor. Who doesn't know that the famous Princess Alice can use spirit vision on her own?" Wu Ming was right. Although Yoli's spirit vision was advanced, there were still limitations. She could not use spirit vision on her own accord. Generally speaking, as long as one had the talent of spirit vision, there would be a chance to activate spirit vision passively, regardless of the level of spirit vision. However, not everyone with the talent of spirit vision could activate spirit vision on their own accord. For example, although Liliana also had spirit vision, she could not use it on her own accord. She could only rely on her own spirit vision passively. Wanli-Gu Yoli could use spirit vision on his own accord, but he must have a specific target. Otherwise, he could only rely on spirit vision passively. Alice, who was known as White Witch G, could use spirit vision on her own accord. In other words, Alice could use spirit vision on the things in her mind. However, using spirit vision on her own accord had the negative effect of consuming a lot of stamina and mental power. Moreover, if the activation of spirit vision had a series of powerful effects, such as the higher the level, the higher the image she saw, and the longer the duration, the negative effect would also increase. The last time Alice saw the scene of the last king, her body almost disappeared after using spirit vision. It was also because the level of spirit vision was too high, and the image she saw was more advanced. Alice pretended to be in a difficult situation. But the great sage equaling heaven's spirit vision must be very advanced. My body can't bear it. However, Wu-Ming had already expected Alice to say that. That's why I'm here. It doesn't matter even if the buff I gave you is used up, because I can replenish it immediately. Moreover, it's the fastest way. Saying that, Wu-Ming looked at Alice's pink lips. No, I think I can still do it if I try hard. Alice immediately said in a panic. Oh, is that so? I think it's hard enough. Let me give you some blessing in advance. Wait. After another round of bickering, Wu-Ming helped Alice up. Sure enough, no matter how many times they kissed, Alice was always like a girl, and her cheeks were red. She looked at Wu-Ming with some resentment, but Wu-Ming smiled. Then I'll start. Having said that, Alice entered her spirit vision state. Alice's eyes fell into a lifeless state, and as she fell into this state, she started to mumble. The golden ape, sealed in the Amaterasu palace, the fragile golden pillar of heaven, the invisible speed, and the delusion breaker eye attached to it. The overlord of the sea's follower, he was the conqueror of everything, the ever-changing lord of dragons and snakes. Thus, he was resurrected by the steel dragon's forbidden dagger, and died by the steel dragon's hands. After that, Alice's body went limp, and Wu-Ming quickly held Alice. Alice gasped for breath. Her weak body trembled slightly, and her pale cheeks were dripping with sweat. I didn't expect that just one active spirit vision would exhaust you so much. I'm sorry, Alice, Wu-Ming said apologetically. Alice smiled and shook her head. Then, please bless me again, Lord Wu-Ming. Use the fastest way. In the room where the sun was shining, the man hugged the girl, and gradually, the two became one. Chapter 205. After he walked out of Alice's room, Wu-Ming saw several women before him. Stare, Wu-Ming asked in confusion. What are you doing? Lord Wu-Ming, you didn't do anything to Lady Alice, did you? Wanli Guyuli asked in detail. Wu-Ming suddenly smiled. Of course, I'm just waking Alice up. When it came to matters like this, he had done it. However, he had to maintain the appearance that he had not done anything. Well, after all, Her Highness Alice and Wu-Ming are publicly acknowledged as a couple in the magic world. It's none of our business whether they did it or not. Erica waved her hand. You're too shameless. My lord, how could you do such a ridiculous thing in broad daylight? Don't listen to Erica's nonsense. Wu-Ming frowned. Although something had indeed happened between him and Alice, it was not to that extent. That kind of thing was about things happening naturally. It was just like Wu-Ming and Alice's first kiss. They had met each other's eyes and they had kissed. Although the aura of a young lady on the king is stronger, it's not to that extent. It could only be said that natural airheads were invisible blade. Although Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard blushed, she still told the truth. As expected, you did something to Lady Alice, didn't you? Wanli Guyuli suddenly roared. You're damaging the king's dignity. You must be careful. As the king, your words and actions will always affect the people around you. Moreover, it's broad daylight. Although Wanli Guyuli appeared to be a yes-man, she was actually a witch who could reprimand the mistakes of those in power. However, she would always be scared to death afterward. Most importantly, when she was reprimanding, Wanli Guyuli was like an old woman. Let's go to the Western Heavenly Palace. We'll deal with the great sage equaling heaven today. Wuming directly interrupted Wanli Guyuli's lecture. So sudden? Erica asked seriously. It had to be said that Erica was the head of the few girls who were Wuming's attendants. Although Hui Na of the Blue Autumn Yard wanted to be the first, she was too simple and not as good as Erica in romance. Erica was usually as cunning as a fox, but when it came to business, Erica could always change her mind first, like a ferocious lioness, giving others a sense of trust. Alice triggered her spirit vision just now and told me about the great sage, heaven's equal. Moreover, Lu Yinghua has already arrived. Luo Hao should be here soon too. Let's take down Sun Wukong before she arrives. Only then did everyone understand why Alice, who had been woken up by Wuming, did not follow him out of bed. The four girls naturally knew that after using spirit vision, one's body would be greatly weakened. Right now, Alice was probably so weak that she could not even get out of bed. However, the girls had forgotten that Alice had the protection bestowed upon her by Wuming. A mere passive spirit vision shouldn't be able to weaken her to the point where she couldn't get up. Doesn't Miss Alice need someone to take care of her? Wanli Guyuli looked worried. As Witch Yuan, who was also tortured by spirit vision until her body was weak, Wanli Guyuli still understood how uncomfortable it was. No need. Alice is already asleep. As long as we hurry back after dealing with the great sage, heaven's equal, she will be fine. Moreover, I will leave Sebastian in the villa. Sebastian is very reliable. In order to prove Wuming's words, Sebastian suddenly appeared. Sebastian placed his right hand on his heart and his left hand straight to his trousers as he bowed slightly. I see. Since it's Mr. Sebastian, then he's very reliable. Erica nodded. Erica had known Sebastian for a longer time than the other girls. She had a clear understanding of Sebastian, who was both Wuming's authority and Wuming's subordinate. Can you imagine the scene of waking up early in the morning and seeing an old man who was as good as Wuming being thrown by Wuming into a small mountain, causing the mountain to collapse and still come out intact? Although Wuming repaired the mountain with a prop that was suspected to be an authority, the impression he left on Erica could not be erased. In that case, let's go. Subsequently, Wuming directly used the portal. Although he had never been to the West Heaven Palace, Wuming had the photos of the West Heaven Palace provided by Hui Na. Wuming smoothly opened the portal to the West Heaven Palace. As soon as they stepped out of the portal, they saw a palace with stone monkey sculptures everywhere. Whether it was the eaves, corners, roadsides, or the central scenery, they were all stone monkey sculptures of different shape. Because Wuming had already spread the news, Mt. Riguang was now in a state of closure. At this moment, there was no one there. Even one of the four major families in Japan that managed the West Heaven Palace, Kyuhachi family, was not there. I have to say, this is really the place where the Monkey King lived. Erica commented. After all, the Monkey King was actually a monkey. Wuming felt the magic circle contained in it, and pointed to the place with the highest magic power. Let's go. The great sage, heaven's equal, is probably sealed there. Walking toward the West Heaven Palace, a small ancestral temple appeared. Walking into the ancestral temple, there were a lot of mahogany inside. A large number of strings were spread out on the mahogany. Those strings formed a special enchantment, which was the City of Horse Protector, and the spell that restricted Monkey King was the City of Horse Protector. Somewhere in the ancestral temple, a golden-haired monkey was lying on a pile of hay. Although this monkey was unusually handsome, it gave people a feeling of desolation. This ancestral temple was connected to the hidden world. The Monkey King was trapped in the cage of the hidden world. The Monkey King, who was inside the ancestral temple, could not leave this ancestral temple. According to the official history committee, The lattice gate of the ancestral temple could only weaken the seal of the City of Horse Protector by using a special method, then open the corridor of the hidden world, and then let the Monkey King go out to kill dragons and snakes, and then be brought back here by the City of Horse Protector. This is the Monkey King? Wu Ming now knew why Luo Hao was so persistent in coming to Japan to kill the great sage equaling heaven with his own hands. The great sage equaling heaven was actually in such a state. Even Wu Ming couldn't stand it anymore. Oh, aren't those little girls coming this time? It seems that they are not ordinary people. They are not only enemies but also compatriot. Interesting. The golden monkey spoke human language, but no matter how he listened, Wu Ming could hear the voice of a walking corpse. Are you satisfied with the status quo, son Wu Ming? Wu Ming frowned and was a little upset. However, the golden monkey just turned over and lay down comfortably. What else can I do? I am restrained by the City of Horse Protector. I can't escape by myself. In that case, it's better to stay here. Anyway, there will be some little girls coming to play with me every once in a while. I won't be lonely. Although that was what he said, Wu Ming's loneliness could be heard by Wanli Guyuli. And those little girls should be the ones who weakened the City of Horse Protector. Is that so? What if I say I will liberate you today? The golden monkey, who had its back facing Wu Ming and others, flashed a light in its eyes. Chapter 206. Hey, I don't think it's good for you, little brother. Monkey smiled, but his body kept twisting, proving his excitement at the moment. I just need you to fight with me, that's all. If you win, you will be free. If you lose, you will return to the mythical realm. Wu Ming looked at Monkey's eyes seriously. Interesting, for such a person who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I, old son, usually beat him, but... Monkey turned over, jumped up, squatted, and looked at Wu Ming. I, old son, am still happy to accept your challenge. Then it's settled. Wu Ming stretched out a hand and began to gather magical power. Create green item, advanced item creation. A large amount of magical power began to be drawn from Wu Ming's body and gathered in Wu Ming's hand. The fluctuation of magical power gathered formed a magical whirlwind, raging inside the temple. However, the temple, including the peach wood inside, remained motionless. It seemed that the spell that not only trapped Monkey King, but also made Luo Hao return in defeat was indeed not fake. Then a lightning-shaped purple dagger appeared in Wu Ming's hand. Everyone just looked at it, and they could feel that the dagger was full of magical power. Rule Breaker! Wu Ming shouted the real name of the noble phantasm, and suddenly held the dagger and stabbed Monkey King. In an instant, light filled the entire temple. Ha 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 ha! I, old son, am back! A rather excited shout came out of the light. The light dissipated, and Monkey King, who was originally on the hay, was gone. There was a big hole on the roof of the temple. Obviously, Monkey King was liberated. Let's go and meet the great sage, heaven's equal. In the sky above the western temple, a golden-haired monkey-like existence wearing a golden chain armor flew on a cloud. Wu Ming and several women stood in the courtyard, watching this scene. That, Lord Wu Ming, aren't you afraid that the great sage equaling heaven will escape? Wanli Guyuli raised his small hand and asked carefully. Of course not. He is the great sage equal to heaven, son Wukong. He will not run away before he fights with the enemy. Wanli Guyuli's thoughts weren't wrong. After all, in myths and legends, Sun Wukong had escaped more than once. However, that was only when Sun Wukong was dealing with difficult enemies. For example, when he was still the great sage, heaven's equal, when he was fighting against Erling Shin and the Azure Bull Demon's Vajra Trap, Sun Wukong would immediately retreat. That was his personality. He was not afraid of anything, and he had the ability to do so. However, Sun Wukong was not stupid. When faced with a difficult enemy, he would choose to retreat strategically. But, since he has already agreed to my challenge, then Sun Wukong will definitely not break his promise. This is morality. That's right. Little brother is right. Sun Wukong, who was flying in the air just now, appeared on the house next to Wuming. I haven't come out for a long time, so I just wanted to stretch my muscles. It seemed that Sun Wukong was indeed very excited. He was half squatting on the eaves, scratching his ears and cheeks with a smile on his face. Then, who is more comfortable now, the great sage equal to heaven's equal to you after you left the Five Fingers Mountain? Wuming was not in a hurry to fight with Sun Wukong, so he began to talk with Sun Wukong. Of course it's now. After I left the Five Fingers Mountain, I have to protect my master and go to the west to obtain the Buddhist scriptures. How can I be as happy as now? Sun Wukong said as he somersaulted twice on the eaves, feeling very uncomfortable. Is that so? Wuming pondered. Then, are you the Monkey King, traveling monk son, or the victorious fighting Buddha now? Wuming asked a rather serious question. This was like summoning a servant. In a Holy Grail war, several sides of a heroic spirit might be summoned. It was just like summoning an old man and a young man with the same true name at different times. That was not impossible. Sun Wukong stopped moving and sat down. Now I, old son, am traveling monk Sunday. That's really a pity. I was looking forward to fighting with you in your heyday. Wu Ming had once seen a picture of 3 Sun Wukongs on it. The first one was the Monkey King who was still living a carefree life in the mountain of flowers and fruit. The second one was the traveling monk's son who was rescued by Tang Sanzang and protected by his 2 junior brothers. The third one was the victorious fighting Buddha who had achieved great merit and was conferred the title by Gautama Buddha. The first Sun Wukong was laughing happily because he was playing with his monkeys. The second Sun Wukong started to frown because of the 81 difficulties. The third Sun Wukong became a Buddha and started to think about how to save the world. There was no need to explain the reason. In Wuming's opinion, the Sun Wukong who laughed the most happily was the strongest Sun Wukong. Wuming felt that to determine whether a person was strong or not, it did not depend on how many methods they had, but how strong their heart was. I didn't expect that a god of disobedience like you would understand the power of the heart. Sun Wukong looked at Wuming in surprise. After all, those who turned into gods of disobedience were those who rebelled against their fate and didn't follow the story that was arranged for them. The reason why I, old son, am here is to rebel against that Gautama Buddha. I, old son, want to be my own great sage. This might be the reason why Sun Wukong was wearing the golden armor. Sun Wukong took out something from his ear, and a shining golden weapon appeared in his hand. So, if you want to let me, old son, return to my legend, you have to ask if the Jingu Bang in my hand agrees or not. You have your own reasons, and I have my own reasons. Then, let's use martial arts to determine who is stronger. After saying that, Wuming took out a staff from the golden ripples. The undying king's nest of darkness, the land of the opposite sex, the home of absolute evil. Show your 10 layers of barriers and capture the enemies who dare to provoke me. Nazalic Underground Lake. Barrier? Looking at Wuming who slammed the staff on the ground, Sun Wukong immediately took action and summoned the legendary Somersault Cloud. With its amazing speed, Somersault Cloud could definitely escape from this barrier. However, Sun Wukong still underestimated the speed of Wuming's barrier, which was a little faster than Sun Wukong's Somersault Cloud. As a result, Sun Wukong, Wuming, Erica, Liliana, Huinao, and Wanli Gu entered a large lake together. The fourth layer of Nazalic was a large lake that basically covered the entire fourth layer. Only a small part of the land was used for teleportation. The underground lake was filled with a large number of water monsters, all of which were hidden in the depths of the underground lake. Not only were there 4 level 85 summer primal water elemental, but there was also a level 95 dark skeletal dragonfish. Moreover, these monsters had the ability to hide. It could be said that as long as the enemy didn't get too close, they would die in the hands of these monsters. After casting Shield of Water Goblins on the 4 women, Wu Ming looked at Sun Wukong, who was floating in the air on a golden cloud. Let this be the final stop for you to return to your legend. Chapter 207. In the face of Wu Ming's bold words, Goku chuckled. Humph, anyone can talk big. Can't you let me return to the myth? Let's see who's the real deal. After that, Goku rushed toward Wu Ming with his golden staff. Ha! Have a taste of my staff. Boom! Wu Ming held the meteor silver with both hands and began to clash with the legendary divine weapon, the golden cudgel. Bang bang bang! The sword and the staff kept colliding with each other, and sparks flew every time they collided. The physical impact of the two has already caused turbulent waves in the underground lake. At this moment, the monsters at the bottom of the lake were already confused by the battle between the two. However, Goku was not known for his martial arts, and soon, Goku fell into a disadvantage. As expected of a steel like me, you have reached such a level with just your martial arts. You have to be careful. After saying that, Sun Wukong made a feint, turned into a breeze, and fled in all directions. Because each floor of Nazalic was quite large, Goku's escape could still affect Wu Ming. But after all, this was a fixed barrier, that is, there was a boundary, and Goku couldn't escape from here. However, there was no guarantee that Goku didn't have the means to break the fixed barrier. To deal with Goku, who turned into a breeze, Wu Ming began to chant. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me who have wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people can't hit me. The pointer on the stone plate in Wu Ming's heart turned, and at 10 o'clock, a stone plate engraved with a phoenix spreading its wings lit up. Like a ray of light, Wu Ming turned around and flew away. In the distance, Goku appeared and looked at the light that was chasing him. Change. Sun Wukong plucked the hair on his head and blew gently. Countless Sun Wukongs that looked exactly like him appeared beside him. These Goku didn't say a word and swarmed toward Wu Ming with the golden staff. Wu Ming stopped and floated on the surface of the lake. He looked at the incoming Sun Wukong clone and chanted again. God says that humans are sinful. Instantly, the surface of the lake began to ripple. God says that humans need to be purified. The surface of the lake fluctuated violently. Thus, I shall bestow the torrential flood upon my body. Sun Wu Ming's many clones approached Wu Ming. In the name of the Supreme King, I will grant you an equal release. Wu Ming's body burst out with a huge amount of magic power, and a spiral water column rose from the lake's surface. After he finished chanting, Wu Ming turned the short needle on the stone plate in his heart to the 6 o'clock direction. The stone plate was engraved with a monstrous flood. Not good. He quickly summoned the somersault cloud and rushed to the edge of the inherent barrier, regardless of whether his doppelganger could affect Wu Ming. The torrential flood drowned all of Sun Wukong's clones. The immense power contained in the flood crushed all of them. Stay here for me. At this moment, Wu Ming, who had used the flood power, was like the god of the sea. He floated in the air, surrounded by many water columns. He didn't know where the water came from, but the super-high flood instantly surged and rushed towards Sun Wukong, who had entered the God of Speed state. The flood drowned the only trace of land on the 4th level of Nazalic. The entire inherent barrier turned into a vast ocean. Like a huge rock smashing into an ant, the flood instantly caught up with Sun Wukong at the edge of the inherent barrier and drowned him in an instant. The edge of the inherent barrier began to crack, and the sound of it being unable to bear the weight was heard. Sun Wukong, who was submerged by the flood, had already been crushed. Wu Ming waved his hand, and a monkey hair, emitting a bright golden light, flew over. As expected, Sun Wukong is indeed the ever-changing Sun Wukong. The Sun Wukong who talked to me at the beginning was transformed from his monkey hair. This was one of the reasons why Wuming could easily destroy Sun Wukong. However, it's not like I didn't prepare for it. Wuming took out the staff of Ains Wukong and removed the inherent barrier. Returning to the Western Heaven Palace, Wu Ming was greeted with the sight of the ruined walls after being swept by the storm. Closing his eyes and sensing for a moment, Wu Ming activated the Phoenix transformation and flew in a certain direction. At the foot of Mount Riguang, Erica and Liliana were fighting a monster with a pig head and a human body that looked like the wild boar of Wells Lana. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard was fighting off many 2-meter-tall apes and protecting Yuli, who had no combat ability. On the other side, not far away, Neza, who had been killed by Silent, was fighting against a monster who looked similar to him and was holding a crescent spade in the form of an 8-armed, 3-headed Dharma god with green face and fangs. Lord Wuming. Wanli Gu Yuli didn't need to fight, so he was the first to notice Wuming. Yo Wuming, Neza also said like a child. However, with such a green face and fangs, it was really hard to look at him directly. The rest of the women also noticed Wuming's arrival, but because they had to pay attention to the enemy in front of them, they didn't have time to greet Wuming for the time being. Is this the combination of steel and snake that elder brother mentioned? It's really extraordinary. The monster with a crescent shovel commented first. Seriously, eldest senior brother. This guy isn't even a beauty. What's there to say? The two beauties in front of me are much more pleasing. Letting out a series of pig noises, the pig-headed man wiped his saliva and continued to fight with Erica and Liliana. Erica and Liliana, on the other hand, cast advanced magic as if they were disgusted by it. Standing behind Liliana, Erica raised her rapier and chanted a spell. Liliana, on the other hand, helped Erica resist the pigmen. Eli, lima sabachthani, my God, why did you abandon me? Lord, why did you abandon me? Lord, I call during the day, but you do not answer. I call at night, but you are silent. But you are the Holy One, baptized by many hymns of Israel. My bones decayed and collapsed, my heart turned into wax, and my body dissolved in it. Please abandon me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me, and I will be abused by evildoers. Become my strength, give me help as soon as possible. Save my soul from the sword, save me from the lion's teeth, save me from the horn of the bison. Let me tell you the name of the Lord, praise him in the center of the world, convert and dedicate him. After the words were spoken, the surrounding air seemed to be frozen. Wuming speculated that if ordinary people with weak bodies were here, they might die instantly. Lend me your sword. As she spoke, Erica stabbed at the pig-headed monster. Humph, beauty, you don't want to play with such a dangerous thing? The pig-headed monster retreated abruptly. It seemed that he was afraid of the words attached to Reinhardt. While Erica forced the pig-headed monster to retreat, Liliana also began to chant the words. Mountains of Gilboa, I pray for the rain of manna to fall upon thee. Offer the sacrifice that thirsty beasts yearn for. Give up yourself and become the shield of your warriors. Saul's shield, pour oil into it and dedicate yourself to this place. Jonathan's bow will never back down from the blood of the enemy. Saul's sword will never return to its scabbard until it devours the flesh of the brave. Until this body is defeated. Jonathan's bow, the weapon of the brave who is as fast as a vulture and as strong as a lion. Run and crush your enemies. After Liliana finished chanting, the temperature in the air dropped. A blue longbow of the same size appeared behind Liliana. The longbow was attached to the Grandmaster's silver-ranked weapon, and the silver-white military knife turned into a blue longbow. Liliana placed her right hand on the bowstring, and the blue light instantly turned into 4 arrows. He pulled the string to a full moon and then, whoosh whoosh whoosh. 4 blue arrows that suddenly enlarged on the way shot towards the pigmen. Because of Erica's interference, the pigmen did not dodge. So that is the spirit of Golgotha and the spirit of David. Chapter 208. Wuming landed beside Wanli Guyuli and Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard. He raised his hand gently, and countless golden chains shot out of the golden ripples in the void, trapping the apes one by one. Lord Wuming, what are the Golgothas and David's language spirits that you mentioned? Wanli Guyuli might have the title of the highest level witch, but she was a newbie in magic, so she didn't know much about the highest level magic. They are the highest level language spirits in magic, the Golgothas and David's language spirits. Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard, who had been living in seclusion in the mountains all year round, spoke up. After all, Hui Na was only cultivating in seclusion and wasn't isolated from the world, so she still knew about magic. That's right. The Golgotha's language spirit is the highest level magic. It's a language spirit with a strong curse effect. It's a hymn known as the Song of Calamity that Christ sang with all his might before his death on the Golgotha's execution ground. It's said that ordinary people with weaker bodies will die instantly if they approach it. It's a language spirit that can bestow hatred and despair on the sword. The spirit of David's words, on the other hand, is the Song of the Bow. If the spirit of Golgotha that Erica uses is the spirit of hatred and despair, then the spirit of David's words is the spirit of sorrow that seeps into one's heart. It is the lament of the undead in the picture. It is also one of the magic spells of the highest level. Wuming looked at Erica and Liliana, who were working together to repel the pig-headed men. Most importantly, these two language spirits have the effect of harming God. Harming God. Wanli Guyuli covered her mouth in astonishment. Don't be so surprised. Humans are such mystical creatures. It's not surprising that they can invent magic that harms God. Wuming couldn't help but chuckle at Yuli's reaction. Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard added, "Besides, your Majesty forgot to mention that these two language spirits are very difficult to master. In history, only some great beings have mastered these two language spirit." Wuming also nodded. That's right. Both of these language spirits are magic spells that place a considerable burden on the body. If one is not careful, one's magic power will be sucked dry and one will die. Speaking of this, Wuming looked at Erica and Liliana with appreciation. Wuming estimated that even in Skahar's eyes, the two girls were quite excellent. At least Skahar could teach them to be on par with Cuchulain. Hui Na, go help Erica and Liliana. No problem, Your Majesty. Hui Na smiled virtuously and ran towards the pork man with the black sky cloud sword. I feel like that sword is afraid of me. Wuming mumbled. Lord Wuming, what did you say? Yuli had a puzzled look on his face. It's nothing. By the way, these two are Sun Wukong's subordinate gods, Zhu Ganglai and Shao Wujing, right? Wuming asked Yuli. That's right. After you trapped the great sage equaling heavens in your inherent barrier, another great sage equaling heavens appeared and attacked us. It seemed that Wanli Guyuli was not used to the term inherent barrier. However, to be honest, there seemed to be no such thing in this world. Then, when Miss Erica, Miss Liliana, and Hui Na were unable to resist, Lord Neza, who claimed to be your authority, saved us. After Wanli Guyuli finished his narration, Wuming understood the cause and effect. After Sun Wukong escaped from the cage, he used the doppelganger technique in the sky. His original purpose was to let his doppelganger restrain Wu Ming while he went to find an earth vein to replenish his strength. However, he found that Wu Ming and Sun Wukong's doppelganger had entered the barrier. Therefore, he wanted to attack Erica and the others with the thought that one less enemy would be one less enemy. But in the end, Neza did not appear. Wuming did not expect that he would obtain authority similar to a familiar after killing Neza. However, when he recalled Neza's rolling eyes before he was killed by Wuming understood. After all, Neza appeared because he wanted to have fun and was attracted by Wuming's dragon and snake attribute. Therefore, in order to continue having fun on the earth, Neza gave Wuming the authority to summon himself. The god of disobedience had the ability to control and bestow authority to the person who killed them. Due to the issue of their dignity and personality, they would normally not bestow any useless authority to the god slayer. However, the authority that Luo Hao obtained that allowed the technology around her to rapidly develop was purely because Luo Hao had killed Saturnus. Saturnus was a god of harvest. It seemed that because he knew that his clone could not hold Wuming for a long time, he directly summoned Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing as his subordinate gods to resist Neza, Erica, and the others. He went to a spiritual mountain, not far from Riguang Mountain, and began to replenish his magical power. After all, Sun Wuming was a spiritual stone which had a fate with the earth. It could be said that he was the steel that protected the dragon and snake, so he could also draw power from the earth. In this way, Neza, who was weakened because of his authority, faced Sha Wujing, who was weakened because he became Sun Wuming's subordinate god. Erica and Liliana faced Zhu Ganglai, who was also weakened because he became Sun Wuming's subordinate god. As for Wanli Gu Yuli and Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard, they were protected by Hui Na because Yuli did not know how to fight. As for those 2-meter-tall apes, they were ordinary humans under the Sunshine Mountain transformed by Sun Wukong's influence. Logically speaking, as long as the god of followers was not defeated, the target would recover. This was also the reason why Hui Na only repelled them and did not kill them. I see, Xiaoen, can you restore them? Wuming asked. The golden chain wrapped around the apes made a sound. No problem, Wuming-sama. Huh. Wanli Guyuli was obviously taken aback. Then, the golden chain emitted a ray of light, so the entangled apes stopped struggling and all of them turned into humans. Then, Wuming instructed Enkidu to transport all these humans to a flat area. Then, Wuming looked at Wanli Guyuli, took off the dragon horn on his head, and handed it to her. Take Kalas with you first. If there is any danger, Kalas will protect you. Even if Kalas did not have the slightest offensive ability, Kalas had a series of powerful support skills such as hiding, teleportation, shield, and HP regeneration. Moreover, if she activated a super powerful enemy detection skill, she could detect the enemy in advance before they approached and give instructions for the next action. Are you going to look for the great sage, heaven's equal, Lord Wuming? Wanli Guyuli took Kalas and then asked worriedly. Yes, after all, I was the one who released him. It's my fault for not trapping him with an inherent barrier. I'll try my best to reduce the damage to the surroundings. After saying that, Wuming turned around and was about to leave. Please wait a moment, Yuli shouted. Wuming turned his head and looked at Yuli, who called out to him. Please come back safely, please. Looking at Yuli's rare serious face, Wuming said with a smile. Ah, of course. Chapter 209. Wuming came to a hill. Wuming wasn't worried about Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing. Not to mention Neza, even Erica and Liliana, who had activated Golgotha and David's language spirit, were not ordinary people, not to mention Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard, who held the heavenly cloud sword, because Wuming wasn't worried about them. Flying to the top of the hill, Wuming saw a golden monkey-shaped rock, which was constantly absorbing the power of the earth. At this time, Wuming directly took out a milky white holy spear from the golden ripples. It was originally the core branch of the world tree, which was taken down by Skaha, refined, and given to Wuming. After that, it merged with the forest divine beast Funbaba, which strengthened the holy spear a lot. It could be used as both a weapon and a weapon. It could be said that this spear has been with Wuming since Wuming became stronger. Wuming raised the holy spear over his shoulder and began to recite its true name. Its name was, my Yggdrasil. Accompanied by countless holy light, green vines wrapped around the white holy spear and stabbed toward the rock. Boom! The top of the hill was directly blown up, and a large number of gravel continued to roll down the hill, and then it was caught by the giant vines that grew out from the foot of the hill. Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, who were fighting, turned their heads slightly because of the explosion at Sun Wukong's location. Erica, the others, and Neza took the opportunity to attack fiercely. Zhu Ganglai, who was already at a disadvantage, was now being beaten until he screamed. "Ah, you've gone too far." With a roar, Zhu Ganglai threw the rake in his hand, and a huge amount of magical power erupted from his body. In an instant, the original pig-headed man turned into a big wild boar. This time, it was really the same as Welaslana's authority, wild boar. Roar! The huge wild boar howled and rushed toward Erica and others. Fly, boots of Hermes! Wings of Artemis! Through the night, please grant me the privilege of flying in the heavenly Tao. Erica and Liliana chanted jump and fly to avoid the collision of the giant boar. On the other hand, clear autumn courtyard's Hui Na stood in place and began to speak with a smile. O Kusanagi Cloud Sword, with my body as a sacrifice, I am willing to quell the violent spirit. Thousand leaves break, God's Yuan Mao, can surpass. Today my name is Pity. In an instant, the heavenly pursuit cloud sword in Hui Na's hand began to emit demonic power, and this demonic power wrapped around Hui Na's body. Hui Na's originally clear eyes had turned golden. Hui Na, who was entangled by the heavenly cloud sword's magic, unleashed a powerful force. With a wave of her sword, she blocked the giant boar that Zhu Ganglai had transformed into. What? How could this be possible? A mere human, huh? This is the aura of the god of steel. Zhu Ganglai, who was blocked by Hui Na's attack, couldn't believe it. The girl in front of him blocked his attack with a human body, but when he saw Hui Na's aura, he understood. Since it's the same kind of steel as elder senior brother, there's no other way. Zhu Ganglai was stunned, and then as if he heard something, Zhu Gonglia's huge body instantly turned into a pool of mud and merged into the ground. In an instant, Hui Na's eyes reverted back to the pair of red amber-like eyes. She looked at her surroundings in a natural manner. Did Zhu Ganglai disappear? However, Erica, Liliana, and even Wanli Guyoli, who stood in the distance, looked at Hui Na with unfathomable eyes. On the other side, Sha Wujing, who was fighting with the same ferocious Neza, saw Zhu Ganglai merged into the ground, and he made a feint to avoid Neza. Since second senior brother chose to return to elder senior brother's body, then there's no need for me to exist. With that, Sha Wujing also turned into a pool of mud and seeped into the ground. Neza, who cancelled his 8-armed, 3-headed avatar and returned to the appearance of an ordinary child, was excited. I made the right choice. I didn't expect to meet Sun Wukong and his 2 brothers. However, I'm a little tired. I'd better go back and take a rest first. After that, Neza turned into a bead and disappeared in the air. It could only be said that Neza was indeed a child. He wanted to sleep after playing. On the other side, on the top of the mountain, Wuming waved his hand, and a large amount of magical power was released, blowing away the smoke generated by his noble phantasm, revealing Sun Wukong, who was a little embarrassed. Not only the god of disobedience, but also the god slayer, both steel and snake, you really deserve to have several identities, little brother. Sun Wukong, who recovered his power, was not annoyed and began to praise Wuming. Wuming held Yggdrasil, which flew back automatically, and swung his spear. As expected of the great sage, heaven's equal. If your doppelganger hadn't used monkey fur to create a doppelganger, I wouldn't have been able to tell that the Sun Wukong I trapped in the enchantment was a fake. Hee, that's for sure. I, old Sun, am very confident in my own abilities. Sun Wukong began to chuckle because of Wu Ming's praise. You're so fat and you're panting. But, in an instant, Sun Wukong's face changed. "I'm not alone, come on, my brothers!" Sun Wukong shouted. In an instant, a pile of mud and a pool of mud appeared from the ground and was instantly absorbed by Sun Wukong. "Ha ha 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 ha!" Looking at Sun Wukong, who was laughing, Wu Ming frowned. He had devoured Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, who were his subordinate gods. From there, he had recovered and replenished the energy he had lost when he was trapped in the soul world. Now, the Sun Wukong in front of Wu Ming could be said to be a Sun Wukong who was in his complete form without any power gaps. "So that's how it is. You summoned your subordinate gods, Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, just in case, to recover your own power." Sun Wukong picked up the golden staff and scratched his cheek. "Not all of them. After all, my two brothers are very powerful helpers. I summoned them specifically to deal with your little women, but I didn't expect you to be so strong. You interrupted me before I could absorb the ley line to recover my power." Then, Sun Wukong became serious. "Moreover, devouring sounds bad. After all, we three brothers are originally one." Another trinity? Wu Ming thought of Athena. She was also a trinity goddess. Although Kalas was not here with Wu Ming, it was not strange if one thought about it. Tang Sanzang had gone to the west alone to obtain the scriptures. However, because of the addition of mythical elements, he had 3 demon disciples to protect him. It was not strange for Sun Wukong, Zhu Ganglai, and Sha Wujing to be a trinity. "Come on, my compatriots, my old enemies. Today is a battle of life and death. Take my staff first." Bang! Chapter 210. Without enemies, Erica and the others naturally became spectators. After all, the battle between the great sage, Heaven's equal who had recovered his strength, and Wu Ming who was at full strength wasn't something they could participate in. Even Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Yard, who could use divine reliance, wasn't qualified. Sun Wukong rode the somersault cloud and held the Jingu staff in his hand. He turned into a stream of light and constantly accelerated to attack Wu Ming. Wu Ming was not to be outdone. He directly activated the Phoenix transformation. He held Meteor Silver in his right hand and Yggdrasil in his left hand. He released magic from his feet and collided with Sun Wukong. Every time Wu Ming released Heaven Lock, Monkey King could dodge it with lightning speed. After a long time, Wu Ming simply stopped using Heaven Lock and started a pure hand-to-hand fight with Wu Ming. It could only be said that Monkey King was worthy of being the god of steel. His pure strength was much higher than Wu Ming's. If it weren't for the Lune Rune, Wu Ming wouldn't be able to compete with him. Every collision between the two could cause the nearby mountain to collapse, and every attack could cause a gust of wind to sweep around. Erica and others had to retreat a few kilometers away. At this moment, Wu Ming was already high. It had to be said that the great sage, Heaven's equal, was truly the great sage. Even if he had regained his power and appeared as the god of disobedience, his ability was still considerable as a pure god of steel. And Wu Ming, although his strength was weakened a lot because of his transformation from a dragon body to a human body, he was still the root dragon. His body was extremely strong, his magical power was almost unlimited, and he also had many noble phantoms, Lune Rune and Yggdrasil, World Tree, magic buff. Wu Ming couldn't do anything to Wu Ming. The main reason was that both of them had lightning speed ability. Once one of them wanted to run away, the other couldn't stop him at all. However, Sun Wukong also had a shortcoming. Of course, it was another shortcoming in addition to his poor swimming skills, and that was, rumor has it that the great sage, Heaven's equal, is not proficient in spells. He is used to using his Jingu Bang and his own transformation techniques to fight his enemies. Today I will verify if this is true. That's right. No matter where it was in the myths, Sun Wukong didn't use any large-scale destructive spells. He basically just used the Jingu Bang. This meant that Sun Wukong was not proficient in magic. As he spoke, Wuming moved away from Wuming and stood opposite of him. Wuming loosened his hands, and the meteor Silver and Yggdrasil floated beside him. Then, Wuming inserted his right hand into the void, and the golden ripples of the Draconis relic appeared. Wuming took out a mysterious book from it. Nameless Spellbook. Level: EX type. Human relic distance: 1 maximum catch. 1. It was a magic book that contained all the magic spells in a certain world, including the newly created magic spells. Under normal circumstances, this seemingly thick book with countless pages was only used by Wuming to read. However, the God Slayer could use the power of God, and some servants could also use their own relic. Wuming used this relic with another relic. Come and try my magic, great sage, heaven's equal. Then golden ripples appeared behind Wuming, and the golden ripples spread behind him. In an instant, all the golden ripples were unfolded. Sun Wukong held the Jingu Bang and looked sideways slightly. There were at least thousands of golden ripples that surrounded the two of them. Each golden ripple began to gather magical power, and the magical power in each golden ripple began to increase. Gradually, the total amount of magical power had exceeded the magical power in Sun Wukong's body. So what if I'm not good at magic? And you, little brother, are bullying me too much? You think you can treat me like this just because you have a lot of magical weapons? Isn't that a bit disloyal? Although it was a bit frivolous, Sun Wukong was ready, but he was not too worried. With the current density of these golden ripples, he could easily pass through them with the somersault cloud. However, Wuming smiled slightly. Then, come and try it, great sage, heaven's equal. I call it godsend. In an instant, each golden ripple burst out with a bright light that ordinary people couldn't open their eyes, followed by the emergence of a powerful level 10 magic spell. The principle was that Wuming issued a search magic command to the Nameless Spellbook and injected a large amount of magical power to let the Nameless Spellbook activate these magic spells. Then, he connected the Nameless Spellbook to Draconis to establish an exit in the outside world to release these magic spells. To put it simply, Draconis had created a channel between the uninscribed book and space. Thousands of Tier 10 offensive spells cast by the uninscribed book would be released in an instant. The large-scale destructive power of the uninscribed book was comparable to the combined power of several dozen supreme spells. Wuming believed that even if the true body of the mythical gods came, they would not dare to take this move head-on. In other words, once hit by this move, even if Sun Wukong had life-saving means now, he would be badly injured even if he did not die. Sun Wukong also realized the fatal nature of this move and instantly rode the somersault cloud to a place where the golden ripples were spaced apart. However, Wuming was already prepared. Countless chains appeared from every golden ripple that was gathering magic power. Every chain that appeared from the golden ripple intertwined with the heaven lock closest to it. In an instant, a large net was formed. It was a net that was specifically used to attack God. Sun Wukong immediately changed direction and flew down. After all, these golden ripples only covered Wuming and Sun Wukong from the surroundings and above. The ground was still empty. Don't even think about it. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me who have wings. My wings will bring you curses. Evil people will not be able to hit me. In an instant, the long and short needles in Wuming's heart turned at the same time and pointed in the direction of 10 o'clock. Wuming's godlike speed in an instant surpassed Sun Wukong's godlike speed and flew in front of Sun Wukong, blocking his path. Get out of my way! Sun Wukong brandished the Jingu Bang and viciously smashed it at Wuming. I am the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it is a human or a demon, I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. In an instant, the long and short needles pointed in the direction of 2 o'clock. An indomitable giant appeared and fiercely hit Sun Wukong, instantly sending him back into the circle of golden ripples. At this time, the twilight of the gods, God's End, was completed. Chapter 211. Near Mount Riguang. Erica and the others looked strangely at the spot where there should have been a violent explosion. Just as Wuming set up the array and trapped the great sage, Heaven's equal, Erica and the others had been retreating. At that time, the mana emitted by the thousands of golden ripples frightened Erica, who had nothing to fear, let alone the other girls. Besides, the mana was still rising. Just as the girls retreated to about a few kilometers away, the mana reached a critical saturation point and erupted. However, at this moment, there was no one in the place where Wuming and the thousands of golden ripples had disappeared completely. Erica and the others stood on a high ground and looked at the place where Wuming had been. What's going on? Why are Lord Wuming and the great sage, Heaven's equal, gone? Wanli Gu Yuli hurriedly asked the other girls with a worried look. Don't worry, Yuli, His Majesty will be fine. Hui Na comforted her and said firmly without any worry in her voice. Hui Na is right. Wuming is both the god of disobedience and the godslayer. If I'm not wrong, Wuming should have started his inherent enchantment the moment he used that move, Erica analyzed. I agree with Erica's opinion. The only thing that can explain this is our Lord's inherent barrier, Liliana said calmly, not panicking. However, the girls' personalities could also be seen from this. A few weeks ago, Wanli Guyuli was still a high school student living an ordinary life. Although she knew about magic and the god of disobedience, she didn't go deep into it. However, she was quite determined. Even when she was kidnapped by Marquis Wuming and learned that he was going to perform the summoning ritual for the god of disobedience, she still threatened the godslayer with suicide. After being rescued by Wuming and returned to Japan, she continued her high school life. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Erica and Liliana, as the two prodigies, nurtured by the Black Cross and the Black Cross respectively, were already experienced Grand Knights at the young age of 16. It was enough to show that they had experienced a lot on the edge of life and death. Although Erica immediately pledged her loyalty to Wuming after seeing Wuming defeat and kill the two gods of disobedience, she wasn't frivolous. Erica was still famous. She was popular in all the magic associations in the world and couldn't be taken advantage of. It could be said that she had never been loyal to anyone. However, once Erica set on her goal, she would persevere. After being rescued by Wuming, she was a little curious about him. And Wuming. After learning that Wuming's intention to protect humans, Wuming, as if she was a gamble, she had chosen to become his knight. It was the same for Liliana. Don't think that she pledged her loyalty to Wuming after Wuming asked her if she was loyal to him and Karen instigated her. If it wasn't someone Liliana approved of, no one could make Liliana pledge her loyalty. Liliana didn't pledge her loyalty to Marquis Wuming either. That was what she said at that time. Liliana Kranikar, on behalf of the Black Cross, is on your side. Liliana also chose to pledge her loyalty to Wuming because of Wuming's character and Erica's presence. She said that they didn't have a good relationship, but in fact, Liliana also knew that she had always said that she didn't have a good relationship with Erica, but that was only because they were in the same camp. If she still said that after pledging her loyalty to Wuming, it was purely a matter of arrogance. In short, it could be said that Erica and Liliana didn't choose the wrong person, and Wuming didn't fail to live up to their loyalty. As for Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard, this exceptionally simple girl came to Wuming's side because of her grandfather's order. In fact, Susanoo wanted Hui Na to be his eyes to understand and monitor Wuming. After all, in the eyes of God, such talents would appear in every era, and it didn't matter even if they were sacrificed. After Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard received the order to come to Wu Ming's side, she arranged herself to be one of Wu Ming's items. In terms of loyalty, Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard was now the most loyal person among Wu Ming's followers. Even if Hui Na was to attack Susanu's life, Wu Ming believed that this pure girl would use the power of Susanu's life to attack him. After all, under the order of the new master, she couldn't use the power given to her by the original master to attack the original master. This was different for Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard. After all, this girl was too naive. After being told by her grandfather that she was going to follow the king, she regarded herself as Wu Ming's item. It was like a high-tech robot. If the original master set the next master to be someone else, then she would completely obey the orders of the new master. It could only be said that she had gone astray. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard simply believed that nothing would happen to Wu Ming. There was no reason. Believe in Wu Ming, Yuli. He is a rare god. Erica looked at Wanlig Yuli with a smile on her face. Looking at the confident faces of Erica, Liliana, and Hui Na, Wanlig Yuli seemed to understand something and smiled. Yes, I understand, Miss Erica. At this moment, a tiny crack appeared in the void where Wu Ming had been standing but was now empty. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard was the first to discover the crack. Look! Hui Na pointed at the empty void. Erica and Liliana immediately filled their eyes with magic power, and their eyesight was instantly improved to the extreme. Although they couldn't see, Wanliguyuli crossed his hands and placed them before his chest, looking into the distance. Then, the crack gradually enlarged until it was so big that Wanliguyuli could see it clearly. Then, the space shattered. Crack, crack, crack. The sound that sounded like a mirror breaking came to the girl's ears. In the shattered void, two figures emerged from it. Master Wu Ming! Wanliguyuli yelled in excitement. Although he couldn't see clearly and could only see a vague outline, Wanliguyuli still believed that it was Wu Ming. Great! Master Wu Ming is fine. Feeling reassured, Wanliguyuli lowered his head slightly and put his palms together, as if he were thanking the gods. In the distance, Wu Ming faced Sun Wu Ming with a quaint golden sword in the style of Huaxia. At this moment, both of them were in rags. You bastard! How dare you scheme against me? Sun Wu Ming said furiously. Chapter 212. Goku's complaint was not wrong at all. Wu Ming indeed plotted against Goku. At first, he bluffed with the twilight of the gods, Godsend, and when he escaped, he released the heaven lock hidden in the golden ripples and formed a giant net. Then, when Sun Wukong escaped toward the gap below, he activated his double authority and used super speed to overtake Sun Wukong. Then, he used the supergiant to punch him into the twilight of the gods, Godsend. Finally, he took out the staff of Anziergong and trapped the exploding twilight of the gods, Godsend, together with Sun Wukong and Wu Ming himself in the fixed boundary. After all, an explosion of such a scale would definitely affect the nearby areas. Erica and the others who had the ability to protect themselves would be fine, but if something went wrong, the famous Sunshine Mountain would definitely be razed to the ground, including the scattered residents around. Goku's weakness mentioned by Wu Ming before was not that Goku was not proficient in magic, but that he was often deceived by schemes. This was a common occurrence in myths and legends. Sun Wukong was lured away by a demon using a trick, resulting in Tang Sanzang being captured. It was not unreasonable for the Trinity to be one. The reason why Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing were not strong and did not have much use in myths and legends was entirely because the three brothers were a trinity. All their abilities were concentrated on one person, so naturally they were weak. Although I'm not very proficient in schemes, I still know the principle of using my strength to attack the enemy's weakness. However, Godsend didn't kill you, which is really beyond my expectation. Wu Ming said with a serious face. Humph. Ignorant brat, standing on the dragon snake's side, you probably don't know about the ancient covenant. Goku said a word that Wu-Ming had never heard of. It just so happens that I also have some doubts, so I'll explain it to you. In order to punish the demon king who killed the gods specially formulated a set of criteria. As long as certain conditions are met, the disobedient god can receive the blessing of heaven, earth, and stars to greatly increase his combat power. That is the ancient covenant, Goku said with a smug smile. However, only a few extremely authoritative and valiant steel can obtain the blessing of the ancient covenant. I, old son, belong to such a steel. Then, Goku showed a puzzled expression again. What I, old son, am puzzled about is the condition to activate the ancient covenant. You have to face multiple god slayers to use the ancient covenant. But I, old son, suddenly received a boost just now. Otherwise, even if I, old son, have the invincible Vajra body, I would have been tricked by you. An ancient covenant? If that's the case, then there must be a final king. Wu-Ming thought. Maybe the name of my trick stimulated the gods. Wu-Ming said half-jokingly. Who cares? I'm not a person who is short of money. Since I'm still alive, let's continue. God Slayer. Goku rushed over with his staff. Wu-Ming, on the other hand, held his golden sword horizontally and rushed towards Sun Wukong. This time, Wu-Ming started a normal hand-to-hand combat with Goku, and it was a hand-to-hand combat without using his authority and Lun's rune. Several attacks hit Wu-Ming, and Wu-Ming retreated slightly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ha 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 ha, what's wrong, God Slayer? Are you at your wits' end? Why is it different from before? Goku laughed and mocked Wu-Ming. However, Wu-Ming didn't care and continued to fight with Goku. Wu-Ming was waiting for an opportunity to hit Sun Wukong. Just now, Wu-Ming and Goku met in the enchantment that caused the big explosion. At that time, the enchantment was almost broken. When Wu-Ming knew that Goku was not dead, he directly activated his warrior avatar, summoned his golden sword, and used a spell. After that, Wu-Ming and Goku came out of the enchantment. Goku was very careful now. After all, he fell for Wu-Ming's trick once. Seeing that Wu-Ming was so weak, he was on his guard. However, the great sage was destined to be unsuited for such delicate work. In an instant, Wu-Ming found an opportunity. In an instant, Wu-Ming sped up and stabbed the golden sword into Goku's abdomen. Goku's eyes narrowed as if he sensed something. He hurriedly tried to dodge with the somersault cloud. However, at this time, the golden sword was still a bit away from Goku. Suddenly, Wu-Ming's heaven lock moved. The heaven lock didn't bind Goku, but chose the hilt of the golden sword. In that instant, the golden sword was pushed by the heavenly lock, and it was this push that allowed the golden sword to pierce Sun Wukong's abdomen while he was riding the somersault cloud. Damn it! It's a weapon that can cut through godhood. Goku instantly realized that his somersault cloud couldn't be used. Die for me, old son. Although Wu-Ming had stabbed Goku, Wu-Ming was currently in a defenseless state. Goku raised his staff and attacked Wu-Ming. However, beep beep beep. Wu-Ming's short needle pointed to the 9 o'clock direction. The stone plate depicting a god covered in lightning instantly lit up. Wu-Ming transformed into a bolt of lightning and instantly teleported behind Goku. Then, he began to chant, "Lightning! Lightning! Lightning! I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with white, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is standing on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. I am the one who will crush all enemies and enmity between humans and demons." The short needle dimmed, and the long needle turned to the 9 o'clock direction, and the god of thunder incarnation was activated. At this moment, Wu-Ming's eyes, nose, and ears were full of violent lightning, and his whole body was also exuding high-energy lightning. Electric sparks were constantly bursting and dancing. At this moment, Wuming was like the god of thunder. Sure enough, Goku, you do have the courage of steel, but you lack wisdom. Damn God Slayer, you plotted against me again. Goku roared furiously. Wuming deliberately did not reveal his ability in order to let the somersault cloud on the golden sword take effect. The golden sword spirit that Wuming prepared after knowing that Goku was not dead was the somersault cloud's spirit. If he didn't seal the somersault cloud, he wouldn't be able to catch Goku. As for the issue of double authority, that was Wuming's new ability. When two needles illuminated at the same time pointed to the same stone plate, the stone plate would erupt with double or more power. However, after using it there would be a cooldown period. This was also the reason why Silent Cry didn't use Double Phoenix. In order to get rid of Goku as soon as possible, Wuming chose to use the Golden Sword's spirit to seal Goku's somersault cloud. Now, without the somersault cloud, Goku was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. With my spirit, let the justice of the world appear. This spell is powerful and eloquent. It is the sword of wisdom that greets victory. Chapter 213. You were originally a spiritual stone used by Nuwa when she mended the heavens. Some say that you were formed from a spiritual stone created by heaven and earth. You absorbed the sun, moon, yin and yang, and obtained the fortune of heaven and earth. You found the spiritual Fongtsuan mountain and worshipped Patriarch Bodhi. You learned a lot of skills, wreaked havoc in the Dragon Palace, stole the sea-steadying divine needle, barged into the underworld, destroyed the Book of Life and Death, went to the Heavenly Palace, and caused chaos in the Heavenly Court. At this moment, the words on the sword of spiritual speech changed. Wuming continued. Because you were dissatisfied with the position of Horse Protector and disobeyed the Heavenly Court's rules, you descended to the mortal world several times. After being ordered by the Heavenly Court, you received the title of Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. You also fought with the Heavenly Court because you didn't have a spot in the Feast of Immortality. The Heavenly Court was helpless. At this moment, the golden swords gradually increased and surrounded Sun Wukong. The swords were entwined with the curse of Horse Protector. Shut up for me, old Sun. Sun Wukong attacked the golden sword array as Wu Ming continued to speak. After being captured by the Heavenly Court, you cultivated a pair of fiery golden eyes in the alchemy cauldron and caused havoc in the Heavenly Court again. Then, you were stopped by Gautama Buddha in the Western Paradise. After losing a bet with him, you were suppressed under the Five-Finger Mountain. This shows that you failed in scheming. The golden swords kept stabbing at Sun Wukong and began to cut his godhood. You were suppressed for 500 years. Later, you received guidance from Bodhisattva. You were rescued by Tang Sanzang and protected in his quest for the Buddhist scriptures. After experiencing 81 disasters, you became the victorious fighting Buddha of Buddhism. You changed from a Taoist guardian god to a Buddhist guardian god. At this moment, Sun Wukong was covered in wounds and blood. Now, Sun Wukong's 72 transformations, Dharma form, fiery golden eyes, somersault cloud, and other abilities were all sealed. Wuming continued. And you, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, Sun Wukong, became the victorious fighting Buddha who obeyed Gautama Buddha's orders. Ah! Shut up for me, old Sun. Sun Wukong was completely enraged. He was a person filled with freedom. From his series of actions in the Heavenly Court, it could be seen that the reason why the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong, appeared in the world was to rebel against his own fate and his unfree life. Every disobedient god had a disobedient side. It had to be said that Wuming really admired the great sage, Heaven's Equal. However, in the end, the great sage, Heaven's Equal's edges were smoothed out, and he became the kind victorious fighting Buddha. Great sage returned to the myths. Wuming raised the golden sword, and the lightning wrapped around it. Then, the surrounding golden swords all gathered around Wuming's sword, forming a giant lightning ancient golden sword. Then, Wuming slashed at Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong raised the Jingu Bang and blocked the powerful strike. However, Kacha! The golden cudgel broke into 2 pieces, and the golden sword slashed Sun Wukong's body. Aha! Looking at the golden hoop staff that had been broken into 2 pieces, Wuming finally understood Alice's words. The golden ape was sealed in the palace of Eastern Light. The golden heavenly pillar, the invisible seraphic speed, and the delusion breaker eye were attached to it. He was the follower of the overlord of mountains and seas. He was the conqueror of all, the ever-changing lord of dragons and snakes. Thus, he was resurrected by the forbidden dagger held by the steel dragon, and died by the steel dragon's hands. The golden heavenly pillar was the Jingu Bang, the seraphic speed was the somersault cloud, the delusion breaker eye was the fiery golden eyes, the overlords of mountains and seas were Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, the forbidden dagger was the talisman that could break all spells, and the steel dragon was me. Clenching the giant golden lightning sword in his hand, Wuming looked at the dying Monkey King. You've won this time, God Slayer. I, old son, have lost to a trick again. I hope you can have a good fight with me next time. After all, Wuming was in a hurry to send the great sage, Heaven's equal, back to the myths, so he used a trick. If we meet again, I will, great sage, Heaven's equal. Wuming said the last 4 words very seriously. Poochie! The newly liberated great sage, Heaven's equal, was sent back to the myths. Deactivating the avatars of the Thunder God and the Warrior, Wu Ming flew somewhere unhurriedly, but not to where Erica and the rest of them were. After landing, Wuming spoke without looking back. You're here, Guinevere, Lancelot. Yes, Wuming's power did not increase after killing the great sage, which was the same as when Wuming killed Perseus, which meant that the great sage, Heaven's power, was absorbed by the arrowhead disc. Moreover, even if the great sage, Heaven's equal's power, was not absorbed by the arrowhead disc, Wuming could guess Guinevere's arrival. Guinevere, who was in pursuit of the strongest steel, couldn't let go of any steel, even Perseus, who was not a pure steel, Guinevere didn't let him go. As for the matter of Neza, it could only be said to be a coincidence. After all, Guinevere did not need to be around Wuming all the time, and Wuming's encounter with Neza was an accident, so Neza became Wuming's power. After feeling the changes in the surrounding magical power, Wuming came to a small forest. As expected of the Villo, you found out my hiding place so quickly. Guinevere's voice came from behind Wuming. Wuming turned his head. Lancelot rode a white horse without saying a word, and the petite woman sitting in front of him was Guinevere. After Wuming learned about Guinevere, he felt sorry for the girl. She forgot everything about her master, but she had to wake him up. But on the way to find her master, she fell in love with the Villo, causing the plan to use King Arthur to summon the last king to fail, and she died. Even if she could be reincarnated, it would be too cruel. I say, do you want to wake up the last king together? Wuming asked a question that shocked Guinevere and Lancelot. Guinevere exclaimed. After about 5 minutes, Wuming left the small forest. Only the 3 of them knew what Wuming, Guinevere, and Lancelot talked about. Guinevere and Lancelot stood in place, looking at Wuming in the distance. That's great, uncle. This way the Villo will be our companion. Guinevere smiled sweetly. Lancelot did not say anything and just waited quietly. It's time to go, my beloved daughter. There are other godslayers approaching, Lancelot reminded. Is it that lord? Guinevere asked with some weariness. Lancelot nodded. Since it's that lord, let's leave first. After all, it'll be troublesome if we get entangled. After that, Lancelot rode his white horse out of the small forest. A moment later, a bolt of lightning came to the small forest, and after checking the small forest, it turned into a bolt of lightning and left. Chapter 214. After Wooming parted ways with Guinevere and Lancelot, he found Erica and the others who were looking for him. Lord Wooming, Wanli Gu Yuli shouted excitedly. Thank you for everything you've done for Japan. As he spoke, Wanli Gu Yuli bowed. Don't mention it. If you must say, I'm partly responsible for Luo Hao's recent visit to Japan. Wooming was right. Wooming had asked Luo Hao about it. Luo Hao had originally planned to come later. If it were not for the relationship between Wooming and Luo Hao would not have decided to bring forward her visit. No matter what, you've saved Japan. I'm truly grateful. When he saw this, Wooming could only accept it. Usually, in such a situation, one would have to devote oneself to him. Erica had a sly smile on her face. Devote oneself to him? Liliana cried out in surprise. Devote oneself to him. Clear autumn courtyards. Hui Na blushed slightly. Why were you offering yourself to me? Wanli Gu Yuli's face instantly turned red as he stuttered and shouted. Why were you? You perverted devil king. As expected, all devil kings are brutal. Lord Wooming, as a rare virtuous king, you must watch your actions. Wanli Gu Yuli started lecturing Wooming. Wooming glanced at Erica rather helplessly. You've got a bad taste, Erica. Is that so? Thank you for the compliment. Erica's face was filled with pride. Although I don't want to disturb you, but Lord Cult Master is here. A casual and frivolous voice was heard. Wooming glanced at Kanaji Winterhorse, who was standing at the side. Wooming had noticed Kanaji Winterhorse when he arrived. However, due to the atmosphere at the time, Wooming did not point it out. Now, it seemed that Erica and the others did not notice this representative of the History Editing Committee. It could only be said that the other party was not simple. He had to be at least a Grand Knight. That sect master came so quickly? Liliana was a little surprised. After all, Lu Yinghua had just said that Luo Hao was coming this morning, and she had arrived on the same day. Luo Hao has divine feet. If I'm not wrong, Luo Hao came here on foot. He didn't ride any vehicle, right? Speaking of me, Wooming looked at the winter horse. As expected of the king of disobedience. You're right. That hierarch did not ride on any means of transportation. He just appeared out of nowhere. May I ask if God's limbs is Lord Hierarch's power? Wanli Gu Yuli asked. If I'm not wrong, it should be Chinese Kung Fu, Erica said. That's right. The so-called divine celerity is actually the use of Huaxia's Kung Fu when it's practiced to the extreme and can travel thousands of miles in a day. To put it simply, it's teleportation. So powerful. Wanli Gu Yuli covered her mouth in disbelief. Well, after all, there are also advanced magic such as teleportation, flight, and so on in magic. Yuli will be fine as long as she comes into contact with them more. Hui Na smiled at Wanli Gu Yuli and comforted her. There's no time to lose. Let's go and meet Luo Hao, Wooming said. That's right. Otherwise, the sect leader will really tear down Japan. Please. Kanaji Winterhorse looked very embarrassed. He clasped his hands and begged. However, no matter how one looked at it, the winter horse gave off a leisurely and lazy aura. Let's go. After Wooming finished speaking, Erica and the others went ahead and got into the car prepared by the winter horse. Meanwhile, Wooming and the winter horse got into the car behind. Originally, Hui Na wanted to sit with Wooming. However, Erica clearly saw through Wooming's intention and pulled the girls into the car in front. In the car, the winter horse sat in the driver's seat, Wooming sat in the back, and a man in a suit with short hair sat in the front passenger seat. He had a neutral appearance. Thank you for crusading against the great sage, heaven's equal, Lord King of disobedience. After the car started, the woman spoke. To be honest, when Wooming first got into the car, he was not sure if this was a woman. After she spoke, Wooming combined the few characteristics that he observed that she did not have an Adam's apple, and slightly protruding chest. Only then did he confirm that this was a woman. She had short black hair, simple and unadorned black-rimmed eyes, a beautiful face, and an otherworldly temperament. There was not a trace of fat on her slender body. Coupled with the men's suit, those who did not know her would think that she was a beautiful young man who came out of nowhere. You must be Saya Gong Xian, the head of the Tokyo branch of the Japan History Redaction Committee. Wu Ming revealed her true identity. Saya Gong Xian came from the Saya Gong family, one of the 4 major magician families in Japan. She was the same as Hui Na, who came from the Kyukian house. She was also the highest-ranking witch among the witches. I didn't expect Lord King of Disobedience to know me. It's a great honor. Saya Gong Xian said with a smile. Don't play around with me. Susanoo is your boss, right? The winter horse was obviously stunned when he heard this, but he quickly reacted. However, Wu Ming still caught this scene. Yes, Lord Yu Laogong is indeed my boss. He is also the founder of the Japan History Redaction Committee. Saya Gong Xian didn't hide anything and said something that shocked everyone. However, Wu Ming was not surprised. I don't know how Wu Ming found out about this. Saya Gong Xian asked. Wu Ming, on the other hand, laughed in boredom. The Jizuka family is the family that manages the West Heaven Palace. When the dragon snake was still alive, they knew and could use the witches to weaken the seal of the Great Sage equaling heaven. The Great Sage equaling heaven was ordered by Susanoo to be brought to Japan. These two are obviously related. Wu Ming glanced at the sweating winter horse and continued. Hui Na was born in the Sakura courtyard, and she called Kosusaka Onami grandfather. From this, it can be seen that the other 3 families are related to Kosusaka Onami. Although that guy said that he graduated, with his personality, it's impossible for him to not cause trouble. But there is one thing I didn't guess. I only thought that Susanoo was the one who supported the establishment of the Japan History Redaction Committee. I didn't expect him to be the one who established the committee. After Wu Ming finished, Saya Gong Xian clapped her hand. As expected of someone who can suppress Lord Yu Laogong. I didn't expect Wu Ming-sama to be so smart. Wu Ming did not comment on Saya Gong Xian's flattery. He just smiled and did not comment on Saya Gong Xian's praise. Since I already know so much, it would be wrong if I still can't figure it out. After all, the fact that Hui Na called Susanoo as her grandfather was enough to know that he was related to the 4 major families. The Japan History Redaction Committee was basically made up of the 4 major families. Therefore, there was no need to think about anything else. So, are you here to pledge allegiance to me, Saya Gong Xian? Chapter 215. This question made Kaneko Winterhorse break out in cold sweat again. Although he knew some things, he didn't know that much. Now that he was sandwiched between 2 big shots, it wasn't a good thing. Yes, I am here to pledge my allegiance to Wu Ming Saya. Saya Miyazaki didn't beat around the bush. At this moment, Kaneko Winterhorse felt that he couldn't break out in cold sweat anymore. You are so sure that you chose me. Aren't you afraid that Susanoo will come after you? Wu Ming said casually. I am a smart woman and a woman who likes to gamble, but I am still a woman who doesn't want to give up. Wu Ming understood what Saya Miyazaki meant. She also wanted to gamble, just like Tuerika, she wanted to bet on Wu Ming. If she succeeded, she would be second only to one person. Or maybe it was because of Wu Ming's personality that he didn't like to be in charge. Simply put, she would be second only to one person. However, if she lost, death would be considered a light punishment. Speaking of which, I have nothing to do with Susanoo. Logically speaking, even if you pledge your allegiance to me, you won't get anything. Wu Ming closed his eyes and leaned back in the back seat. As a king, you still lack a piece of land. Europe has the King of Swords and Marquis Warban, mainland China has the Pope, America has the superhero John Pluto Smith. Madame Aisha's whereabouts are unknown, and the Black Prince Yarek is in conflict with the British forces. Currently, Japan is the easiest place for you to conquer. Hayao Miyazaki was right. The senior officials of Japan's History Editing Committee naturally knew that their leader was the god of disobedience. Even if they changed their leader, they wouldn't have any conflict, let alone a more powerful leader. With Hayao Miyazaki around, once Silent Wonder announces that Japan is his territory, and then defeats or even kills Susanoo, those higher-ups will definitely be obedient, unlike Britain's Black Prince Yarek, who was resisted by his own forces. Moreover, the last king you seek is in Japan. After conquering Japan, you won't need anyone to interfere with what you do in your own territory, including the entry of other kings. Sayaka Gong Xian was right. Becoming the king of Japan would be a great help to Wu Ming's next move. Just like Luo Hao who came to Japan, if this land was Wu Ming's territory, then Luo Hao wouldn't have come uninvited. In Luo Hao's opinion, the dignity of a king was inviolable. Therefore, Luo Hao would not casually trespass into another king's territory. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Wu Ming smiled. Then, what's in it for you? Saya Gong Xian pushed up her glasses and said without hesitation. I don't want to be under others. You are the god of disobedience. Moreover, I have not pledged my loyalty to the History Editing Committee. Sayaka Gong Xian's meaning was clear. Susanoo won't let Sayaka Gong Xian become the boss, but Wu Ming will. This is because Wu Ming doesn't have any requirements for these mundane matters. Furthermore, as the god of disobedience, it's normal for him to be under Wu Ming. Once Wu Ming succeeds, Sayaka Gong Xian will become the sole ruler of Japan's magic world, and Wu Ming will be the god. Then I will accept your allegiance, Sayaka Gong Xian. Thank you, Wu Ming-sama. In the future, I will make sure that your decision is correct. Then, I look forward to working with you. Yes, I look forward to working with you. Just like that, the fate of Japan was decided in these two cars. At the same time, there was also a Mr. Gansu whose cold sweat had dried up. In Wu Ming's villa, the interior of the main hall had been renovated into an antique style. Luo Hao sat on a futon with his eyes closed, waiting quietly. Lu Yinghua stood behind Luo Hao. His body was tense as he looked ahead with malice. Alice sat elegantly in front of Luo Hao. She smiled but didn't say a word. When Wu Ming and the others arrived outside the villa, they weren't in a hurry to go in. Sayaka Gong Xian got off halfway because she still had something to deal with. Therefore, she wasn't here. After getting off the car, Gansu Dongma spoke. Lord Wu Ming, I won't be going in. Wu Ming naturally knew why Gansu Dongma didn't want to go in. Luo Hao had set the rules. Those who saw his face would have their eyes gouged out, and those who heard his voice would have their ears destroyed. That's right, it was that cruel. Huh. Is it that scary? Wanli Guyoli was obviously frightened. Wanli Guyoli was already afraid of the God Slayer, let alone Luo Hao, who was as cruel as Marquis Warban. It's because Lord Bishop's disciple told us that Lord Bishop has arrived at Lord Wu Ming's villa. That's why we came back to look for you, Gansu Dongma explained. In other words, Lord Bishop trespassed on private property? Wu Ming joked. Only you, Wu Ming, would dare to say that. Erica was a little helpless. Gansu Dongma smiled awkwardly. Erica was indeed right. I wonder how Alice is doing. Wu Ming thought of Alice who was still in the villa. Then, a group of people walked into the villa. As soon as they entered, Wu Ming saw a rather awkward scene. Alice and Luo Hao sat opposite each other while Lu Yinghua stood behind Luo Hao. They didn't say anything. As the door opened, Luo Hao opened his eyes and looked at Wu Ming. Alice and Lu Yinghua also looked at Wu Ming. Dear, you're back, Alice said elegantly. She stood up and walked weakly to Wu Ming's side and hugged his arm. Everyone was confused. Wu Ming, even if I respect you, you can't snatch my prey. Before the others could speak, Luo Hao glared and roared. It's like this, Luo Hao, I've said it before. I allow you to call me Green Lotus. Instantly, the surrounding women looked at Wu Ming with strange expressions. Let's talk outside. If not, we'll fight. All right. Ever since I fought with you, I've been itching for a fight. Today is a good time to spar. With that, Luo Hao charged at Wu Ming. Wu Ming took out the staff of Ain's Ergong and activated the inherent barrier, enveloping himself and Luo Hao, leaving the confused women and Lu Yinghua in the wind. Inside the inherent barrier, the sixth layer of the forest, Wu Ming activated Phoenix and Giant, and kept fighting with Luo Hao. Luo Hao used 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palms and Wu Ming Vajra Divine Art. With the combination of skill and strength, she successfully competed with Wu Ming's speed and strength. Yes, she wanted to compete. Luo Hao, who was proficient in various martial arts, created her own skills. 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palms, coupled with Luo Hao's authority and Vajra Divine Art, Luo Hao's strength was like adding wings to a tiger. Wu Ming, on the other hand, was weaker than Luo Hao in terms of punching and kicking, so Wu Ming used speed. It should be known that there was nothing in the world that could not be defeated except speed. The speed of the Phoenix incarnation combined with the strength of the Giant incarnation made it so that Wu Ming did not need to pay attention to technique. Just relying on speed and strength, he was able to fight evenly with Luo Hao. It seems that you hid your strength last time, Wu Ming. Chapter 216. After all, I only used martial arts to compete with you last time, Wu Ming explained as he flashed through the woods around Luo Hao. So, are you going to use only your authority this time? Luo Hao observed the surroundings vigilantly. Luo Hao, who had reached the peak of martial arts, could naturally capture objects moving at lightning speed. However, even though he could catch it, Luo Hao didn't dare to keep up with that speed. Therefore, Luo Hao became the defensive side. I do have that intention. Is that so? It seems that you are underestimating me, Luo Hao, the king of disobedience. In an instant, Luo Hao burst out with powerful magic. The heavens are clear, the earth is peaceful, and the people are peaceful. An invisible force surged. War in the south, death in the north, the dead in the wild cannot be buried, and the crows can be eaten. For me, the crows can be eaten, and for Ku Hao. Golden particles attached to this invisible force. Boom! The ground began to be destroyed by the golden particles with Luo Hao as the center. As Luo Hao chanted, the golden particles moved faster and instantly reached Wu Ming. As expected of someone who had reached the peak of martial arts, Luo Hao predicted Wu Ming's location and instantly hit Wu Ming. Bang! Wu Ming was sent flying and broke several trees. Smoke and dust filled the air. Wu Ming was forced out of his lightning speed mode. Huff! A giant phantom waved its hand and dispersed the smoke and dust. As expected of the king of martial arts, even if you are not as fast as me, you are still better in terms of technique. Looking at Wu Ming, who acted as if nothing had happened, Luo Hao said, Wu Ming, you are still intact after being hit by the combination of my two authorities. You have the right to look down on me, Luo Hao. That's why I said I looked down on you. Wu Ming did not understand why Luo Hao, who was fine a moment ago, suddenly flipped out. He did not mean to look down on Luo Hao. It's useless to say more. Take this. Brilliant Yang Yang, brilliant lightning, heavenly spirit, earthly spirit, Taishang Laojuan's urgent decree. The dead in the wild will not be buried. How can rotten flesh escape? The sound of water is intense, the reeds are indistinct, the valiant horsemen fight to the death, the poor horses wander about. As the two lines of the poem were recited, a huge golden particle palm struck towards Wu Ming using the 12 flying phoenix divine palms. Thou hast violated the contract and brought evil to the world. The Lord's day, the sinner must be punished. Their spines were crushed, their tendons, bones, hair, and brains were dug out, and their blood and mud were trampled on. If I am one who cannot approach the darkness, then I will follow the Lord's words and destroy thee. In an instant, Wu Ming's golden giant phantom turned red, like an evil spirit that had returned from purgatory. It was ferocious and dazzling, emitting waves of annihilation aura. Boom! The giant's dark red palm and the huge golden palm collided. The destructive aura and the golden particles reacted strongly, causing a dazzling light. It was as if a nuclear bomb had exploded. With Wu Ming and Luo Hao at the center, the impact of the light destroyed the surrounding forest. When the destructive light disappeared, what appeared in front of Wu Ming and Luo Hao was a scorched wilderness. Wu Ming and Luo Hao were still in the same position as before the explosion. However, the giant phantom and the golden palm had disappeared. Wu Ming was still fine as he was basically unharmed. As for Luo Hao, her clothes were slightly tattered, revealing part of her body. Wu Ming looked at Luo Hao, whose clothes were slightly tattered, and asked kindly, "Do you still want to fight?" When Luo Hao heard this, she exploded again. "Before I was a woman, I was a king, a disobedient king. You took advantage of the fact that we've been honest before and humiliated me several times. Today it's either you die or I live." With that, Luo Hao did not care about her clothes and activated her authority again. However, at this moment, Luo Hao sensed an enemy behind her. "Let me sleep for a while." Wu Ming's voice came from behind Luo Hao. Then, Luo Hao fell into a deep sleep. Before her delicate body fell to the ground, Wu Ming hugged her with his big hands. "Really, with such a cute face, why is your temper so weird?" Wu Ming hugged Luo Hao and carefully looked at Luo Hao's face. Then, Wu Ming looked at Wu Ming, standing in the distance. "Okay, you come back too." Wu Ming in the distance shrugged, then turned into a black shadow and merged into Wu Ming's body. This was one of Wu Ming's avatars, Dependence. When Wu Ming first came into contact with this authority, he thought that Dependents were summoned creatures, but he found out that Dependents were copies of himself and summoned. Although Wu Ming said, "Come back," the avatars did not have their own consciousness. All of the avatar's consciousness was Wu Ming. And Wu Ming could receive all of the avatar's senses, and the avatars also had all of Wu Ming's abilities. Simply put, it was like a person playing with several computers, or a person's consciousness had several bodies. If one had to say, it was schizophrenia. The upper limit of the avatars was about 12, and the strength of the avatars was inversely proportional to the number of avatars. One avatar's strength was 100% of the original body's, 2 avatars were 50% of the original body's strength, 4 avatars were 25% of the original body's strength, and so on. In other words, the fewer the avatars, the stronger the avatars. Wu Ming used this authority during the big explosion, leaving the avatars where they were, and then used the speed of the phoenix to come behind Luo Hao. Wu Ming suppressed his magic and breath. Because of the magic chaos after the explosion, Luo Hao did not notice Wu Ming until Wu Ming moved. At that time, Luo Hao wanted to turn back, but Wu Ming directly used magic to shock her brain, causing her to faint. For ordinary people, directly using magic to shock the brain may cause irreversible damage, but it should be fine for the Godslayer. After all, she is a Godslayer. It would be bad if the means are too light to cause her to faint. Wu Ming comforted himself. Last time, Salvatore was the same. After being hit by Wu Ming, he only fainted. Forget it, let's go out first. With his mind, the staff of Anzavulgan was spat out from the golden ripples and floated beside Wu Ming. Wu Ming held Luo Hao with both hands and said to Kalas on his head, "Please, Kalas." "Yes, master." Kalas was originally in the hands of Wanli Guyuli, but because Wanli Guyuli was no longer in danger, Kalas took the initiative to leave Wanli Guyuli and found Wu Ming on her own. Wanli Guyuli seemed to have forgotten about Kalas. If Kalas had not returned to Wuming's hands and Wuming did not ask Wanli Guyuli anymore, Wanli Guyuli would probably be in a panic now. Wuming smiled and shook his head and said casually, "Let's go out and flirt with her." Inherent enchantment, a contact. Kalas entered the command into the staff of Anzavulgan. After entering the command, the staff of Anzavulgan began to glow, and the inherent enchantment began to lift. Soon, Wuming returned to the villa hall with Luo Hao in his arms. Chapter 217. Previously, after Wuming and Luo Hao entered the inherent barrier, Lu Yinghua looked at Alice and the others with an ugly and hostile expression on his face. However, Alice and the others ignored him. "Your Highness Alice, what happened just now?" Liliana asked with a red face. Naturally, the question she asked was about the deer. However, Alice, who was teasing her, replied in this way. "Allah, what's wrong with that? Master Wu Ming and I have even done this and that kind of thing," Alice said with a shy face and a coquettish voice. That? Liliana, Wanli Guyuli, and Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui Na blushed. Is that so? Have you and my master reached that stage?" This was Liliana, who pretended to be serious, but her face was as red as a monkey's butt. It's really too impure?" This was Wanli Guyuli, who could not accept the sudden outburst. "I wonder if it's comfortable." This was Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui Na, who was blushing but curious. How can you, Hui Na? You can't think about these things?" Wanli Guyuli held Hui Na's hands worriedly and admonished her. "I say, your reactions are too exaggerated." Erica looked at the three innocent girls and Alice, who was snickering at the side, with a headache. "I say, it's about time for you to settle down," Lu Yinghua said angrily as if he could not take it any more. When Alice saw this, she returned to her seat with a smile. "What? Don't the disciple of the cult master have confidence in her master?" Lu Yinghua frowned and took a deep breath. "Of course, I have confidence in my master's words. However, that king of disobedience is no ordinary king. Also, can you not talk to me? You're looking at us with such hostility. Do you want to fight?" Erica stood up and provoked. Since he came in, Lu Yinghua had been looking at them with hostile eyes. Even Erica was a little displeased to be stared at with hostility by someone she was not familiar with. "That's exactly what I was thinking. Godslayers will fight against Godslayers, and their subordinates will fight against their disciples," Lu Yinghua said somewhat impatiently. Wait. Wanli Guyuli was a little confused. She had never thought that such a situation would happen. After all, this is for the glory of our Lord. Liliana Kranikar requests to step forward, Liliana said in a serious tone. "It seems very interesting. I want to participate as well." Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard picked up the clouds of heaven and said happily like a child participating in a sports competition. Wait a minute, how can you do this?" Wanli Guyuli said somewhat anxiously. On the other hand, Alice, the culprit, was sitting on the sofa and watching this scene with interest. At this tense moment, Wuming's figure appeared in the villa's living room. Accompanying Wuming was Luo Hao, who was covered in a white cloth and unconscious. "Wuming! My lord!" "Lord Wuming! Your Majesty!" The four women responded. Alice tilted her head and smiled at Wuming. Wuming glanced at Alice, then looked at Lu Yinghua. "Your master has fainted in the battle with me. Take care of her." As he spoke, he was about to hand Luo Hao's body over to Lu Yinghua. "Senior, this junior doesn't dare." Lu Yinghua knelt on the ground with a thud and shouted loudly. "It's only right for the disciple to take care of the master. There's nothing to be afraid of." Wuming raised an eyebrow. Could this be another rule set by Luo Hao? "Senior, this junior really doesn't dare. If there's a lie, may the heavens strike me with lightning. Also, you and master are best friends of the opposite sex. It's only right for you to take care of her, Lu Yinghua said, then lowered his head even more. Why don't you all do it? Wu Ming looked at the other women. However, they all shook their heads. My dear, have you forgotten that sect leader Luo Hao is an existence that can gouge out one's eyes upon seeing one's appearance and destroy one's ears upon hearing one's voice? Because of you, the few of us weren't treated like this by the sect leader. However, that also depends on the severity of the matter. Alice continued to speak coquettishly. That's right. Wu Ming, even his disciple, Lu Yinghua, doesn't dare to take on the task, let alone us, Erica added. After sweeping a glance at the few people present, Wu Ming shrugged. Then I'll do it. Then, Wu Ming carried Luo Hao to an empty room. It was because her clothes were torn and Wu Ming found a white cloth to cover Luo Hao's exposed body. He placed Luo Hao on the bed, lifted the white cloth covering Luo Hao's body, and covered her with a quilt. Let's see if you dare to take advantage of me in the future. Wu Ming smiled, stroked Luo Hao's forehead with his hand, and then left the room. After coming to the living room, Lu Yinghua and the women, who were originally at daggers drawn, no one talked to each other. Wu Ming also studied this problem at the beginning, why Lu Yinghua was so hostile to Erica and the others. As a result, the information found from the information he obtained indicated that Lu Yinghua, who seemed handsome and chic, was extremely disgusted with women, especially powerful women. In layman's terms, it was a disease, and the name of the disease was misogyny. Because Lu Yinghua was trained by Luo Hao since he was a child, and Luo Hao's training method was one word, beating. Of course, Lu Yinghua was the one who was beaten. Over time, Lu Yinghua became extremely hateful of women, especially powerful women, who would always remind him of Luo Hao when he went back. As for the few women present, except for Wanli Guyuli, the rest were all capable and strong women. Erica and Liliana were prodigies trained by Black Cross and Black Cross. Their strength was needless to say. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard was the Qingqiu courtyard's witch Yuan. She had the ultimate skill of inviting the gods to descend. She was the #1 witch of Japan, and her strength was the strongest among the girls. And Alice was even more so. She was a famous woman who could compete with the Black Prince Yarek with her wisdom. Known as the White Witch, she was the former president of Greenwich's Sage Parliament and the current special advisor. Therefore, Lu Yinghua, who seemed to be a handsome young man, was actually a misogynist who hated women. Well, sit down first. Luo Hao and I are done. Do you want to continue? Wu Ming's words broke the cold atmosphere, and then Wu Ming sat down first, and Alice sat next to Wu Ming. Erica, Liliana, Gu Yuli, and Qingqiu courtyard Hui Na stood behind Wu Ming. Of course, Lu Yinghua was also there. You sit down. Wu Ming sighed and commanded. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.